A Midsummer Night's Dream. Chapter 1. Two men and two women get mixed up in love. Theseus was in love. He was the Duke of Athens, and he loved Hippolyta, Queen of the Amazons. They were very happy because they were going to marry at the next full moon. It would be a big wedding. 4 days before the wedding, Aegeus came to see Theseus with his daughter Hermia and two young men called Demetrius and Lysander. Aegeus had a problem. Demetrius wanted to marry Hermia. He liked Demetrius and gave him his permission. The problem was that Hermia did not want to marry Demetrius. She was in love with Lysander and wanted to marry him instead. Lysander loved Hermia and wanted Aegeus to give him permission to marry Hermia. Theseus, however, said that girls should not decide whom they would marry. Their fathers should make this decision. He agreed with Aegeus. He told Hermia that she should obey her father and marry Demetrius. He told her that if she did not, she would die, or they would put her in a convent, where she could never marry. Hermia argued with him. She told him that her father was wrong. Lysander was a better husband because he loved her and she loved him. But Theseus didn't listen. He told her that she must decide before the next full moon, which was the day of his own wedding with Hippolyta. Demetrius begged Hermia to marry him. He asked Lysander to agree that Aegeus had the right to decide whom Hermia should marry. Hermia and Lysander did not agree with Demetrius. Lysander told Theseus that he loved Hermia more than Demetrius did, and that he had just as much money as Demetrius had. He also had something that Demetrius did not have. He had Hermia's love. He could not understand why Aegeus wanted Hermia to marry Demetrius. He reminded Theseus that Demetrius used to love another girl called Helena, and had promised to marry her. Then, when Demetrius saw Hermia, he broke his promise to Helena. Helena, however, still loved Demetrius and wanted to marry him. Theseus still did not listen. He agreed with Aegeus. He warned Hermia, again, that she should obey her father, or she would die. Lysander and Hermia were very disappointed and made a plan to run away together. They planned to go to Lysander's aunt. She was very rich and thought of Lysander as a son. She lived far away where the law of Athens did not reach. They would be able to marry there and be safe. Hermia was sorry to leave Athens because she loved living there, but she knew it was the only way she could marry Lysander. They promised to meet each other in the forest the next night to begin their journey to Lysander's aunt. Helena saw them speaking and came to talk to them. She told them she still loved Demetrius. "Why does he love you instead of me?" she asked Hermia. "How did you make him do it?" Hermia said that she didn't love Demetrius and didn't want him to love her. She tried to stop him. "The more I hate him, the more he loves me," said Hermia. "The more I love him, the more he hates me," said Helena. Hermia and Lysander felt sorry for Helena and told her about their plan to escape from Athens and marry in a faraway place. "We will leave Athens tomorrow night and begin a new life far away," said Lysander. "Demetrius will never see me again," said Hermia. They said goodbye to Helena and wished her good luck. They hoped that Demetrius would fall in love with her again when he discovered that Hermia was married to Lysander and lived far away from Athens. Helena thought about the plan that Lysander and Hermia made. She was angry that Demetrius did not love her anymore. She decided to tell Demetrius about the plan. Then Demetrius would understand that Hermia did not love him and would never marry him. Perhaps he would love Helena again and marry her. Some workers in Athens were preparing to perform a play for the wedding of Theseus and Hippolyta. The play was called The Sad Comedy and Cruel Death of Pyramus and Thisbe. Quince was the leader. He told the others it was a very funny play and very suitable for the wedding. Then he told them which parts they had to play. He told Bottom to play Pyramus, a lover who kills himself for love. Bottom told him he would play it very well. He would make the audience cry. Nevertheless, he said that he could play a bad man even better. In comparison, Quince insisted that he play Pyramus. Then Quince told Flute to play Thisbe, the lady that Pyramus loves. "I cannot play a lady," Flute said. "I have a beard." "It doesn't matter," answered Quince. "You will use a mask." Bottom wanted to play Thisbe too. He was sure that he could play the part very well. He could use a mask, and he knew how to make his voice sound like a lady's voice. Quince told him he had to play Pyramus. Then he told Starveling to play Thisbe's mother and Snout to play Pyramus's father. Quince would play Thisbe's father, and Snug would play the lion. Snug was worried about learning his part on time, but Quince told him he only had to roar. Of course, Bottom wanted to play the lion too. He said he could roar very well. Quince told him again that he must play Pyramus. They decided to meet in the forest the next night to practice. Chapter 2. The Fairies in the Forest. The forest had some very special people living in it. In fact, they weren't really people at all. They were fairies. Fairies can do all kinds of magic things, but sometimes, just like real people, they fight. Even the king and queen of the fairies sometimes argue. When Demetrius and Helena went to the forest to talk to Hermia and Lysander, the king and queen of the fairies were arguing about a servant. The queen had a new servant who was very good, and the king wanted him to be his servant. The king demanded the new servant. The queen refused to give him up. The king was angry and told a mischievous fairy called Puck to pick a special flower and bring it to him. It was a magic flower. His plan was to put this flower on the queen's eyes while she was asleep. Puck told the king, "When she wakes up, she will fall in love with the first thing she sees." Then he would refuse to take the magic away until she gave him the servant. While Puck was getting the flower, the king saw Demetrius walking in the forest. Helena was following him. "Go away, Helena," said Demetrius. "I don't love you any more. I won't marry you. I want to marry Hermia, and her father has given his permission. She must marry me or she will die. But I love you, Demetrius," she replied, "and I will always follow you, wherever you go." "I feel sick when I see you," he shouted at her. "I feel sick when I don't see you," she shouted at him. The fairy king heard them and decided that he would help Helena by putting some of the magic flower on Demetrius's eyes. The king thought, "I'll make sure that Demetrius sees Helena as soon as he wakes up." When Puck returned with the magic flower, he took some to put on the queen's eyes and gave some to Puck to put on Demetrius's eyes. "You can easily recognize him," said the fairy king. "He is wearing clothes from Athens. Make him tired and put some of the magic flower on his eye." The queen's fairies sang her some songs to help her fall asleep. The king found her sleeping in the forest and put some of the magic flower on her eyes. He said some magic words to make her love the first thing that she would see when she woke up. He hoped that it would be a terrible creature, like a dog, a horse, or cat. He was sure that he would get the servant from her. He left her sleeping in the forest. Lysander and Hermia were nearby. They were lost and decided to stay there for the night and continue their journey the next day. Hermia lay down to sleep, and Lysander wanted to lie down next to her. She told him to sleep away from her because they were not married yet. He agreed because he loved her and would do anything she asked. Puck was looking for Demetrius so that he could put some magic flower on his eyes and make him love Helena. He saw Lysander lying asleep and thought he was Demetrius. He put some of the magic flower on Lysander's eyes and ran away. Lysander kept sleeping. Demetrius ran past. Helena was chasing him. He told her to go away and kept running. Helena was too tired to keep running and had to stop for a rest. She started to complain about Demetrius, but then she saw Lysander lying on the ground asleep. She was afraid he might be dead or injured and woke him up. When Lysander sat up, the first thing he saw was Helena. He fell in love with her instantly. He was very angry with Demetrius for running away from her and promised to kill him. Then he told Helena that he loved her. Helena reminded him that he loved Hermia and that Hermia loved him. He said that he did not love Hermia now. He loved only Helena. Helena was very angry that Lysander now loved her instead of Hermia. I love Demetrius. I don't love you, she said and ran away from him. Lysander saw that Hermia was still asleep and told her that he no longer loved her. In fact, he hated her and didn't want to see her again. Of course, Hermia did not hear this because she was still asleep. Lysander ran after Helena and left Hermia alone, sleeping in the forest. When Hermia woke up, she began to tell him that she had a bad dream. But then she realized that he was not there. She was very worried. Why was he not there? Where had he gone? She thought that Demetrius may have taken him away. Perhaps he had even killed him so that she couldn't marry him. Then she would have to marry Demetrius. She didn't know that Lysander didn't love her and went out to look for him. Chapter 3. Making things better makes them worse. After Hermia left to search for Lysander, the workers from Athens arrived to practice their play. Bottom was worried that the killing in the play would make the ladies in the audience afraid. They decided that they would have a prologue. The prologue would tell the audience that Pyramus was really Bottom and that the killing was not real. Then Snout said that the lion might make them afraid too, so they decided on another prologue to tell them that the lion was not real. Bottom thought the ladies might still be afraid and suggested that the lion costume should let them see Snout inside it. They all agreed. The play said that Pyramus and Thisbe met by the light of the moon. So they looked up the calendar and found that there would be a full moon on the night of the wedding. If it was dark that night, a man would come with a light and pretend to be the light of the moon. Another man could be the wall because the two lovers had to talk through a hole in the wall. The man would hold his fingers apart, and the lovers could talk through them. Puck saw the actors practicing. He thought they were very funny and decided to play some tricks. He used magic to give Bottom a donkey's head. When Bottom came in looking like a donkey, all the other actors were afraid and ran away. Bottom thought they were trying to make him frightened, and he began to sing. He sang very badly. The Fairy Queen was still asleep, but the singing woke her up. She saw Bottom with his donkey's head and fell in love with him. She thought the singing was wonderful. She gave him 4 fairies and told him to look after him. The Fairy King wondered whether the Queen was still asleep. Puck told him that she was awake and that she was in love with an actor who looked like a donkey. The king was delighted. "What about the Athenian man?" he asked. "Did you put some magic flour on his eyes too?" "Yes, I did," replied Puck. At that moment, they saw Demetrius and Hermia. Hermia still did not know that Lysander now loved Helena instead of her. "Where's Lysander? Did you take him? Did you kill him?" she asked Demetrius. "Don't worry about Lysander," answered Demetrius. "He does not love you as much as I do. You should love me instead of him. We can be very happy together." This made her angry at him, and she went out to look for Lysander. Demetrius was tired and fell asleep. The Fairy King realized that Puck had put the magic flower on the wrong man. The result was that Lysander loved Helena. Helena loved Demetrius. Demetrius loved Hermia, and Hermia loved Lysander. The king wanted to help Helena. "Go and find Helena," he told Puck. "Demetrius is sleeping here. Bring Helena to him. I will put some magic flour on his eyes, so that when he wakes up, he will see her and love her." He put the magic flour on Demetrius's eyes, and Puck went to find Helena. When he found her, he brought her to Demetrius. But Lysander came with her. He was still asking her to love him. "Demetrius loves Hermia," he told her. "He doesn't love you, but I do. You should love me instead of him." The king of the fairies and Puck thought it would be fun to let both men love Helena. When Demetrius woke up, the first thing he saw was Helena. He fell in love with her. When he told her that he loved her, she thought it was a joke and didn't believe him. She was angrier than ever. "Don't play these silly jokes on me," she shouted. "You are just having fun at my expense. You love Hermia." Lysander reminded Demetrius. "You don't love Helena. Tell her that you don't love her, and perhaps she will love me. You can keep your Hermia," said Demetrius. "I don't love her now. I love Helena. and I always will." Hermia found them arguing and asked Lysander why he left her sleeping in the forest. "Love told me to go," he replied. "I had to follow Helena. She is beautiful, and I love her." Hermia could not understand this. Only a short time ago, Lysander loved her and risked death to marry her. How could he suddenly change and love Helena instead of her? Helena thought that Hermia was part of the joke and told her that she was being cruel to her friend. Helena was becoming angrier and angrier, and Hermia was becoming more and more confused. Both men said they loved Helena, but Helena did not believe either of them. Nobody loved Hermia. The two men began to fight. Then Hermia accused Helena of taking her lover from her, and the two women began to fight. Helena begged the two men to stop Hermia from hurting her. "I will suffer because you are enjoying a joke," she said. Then she begged Hermia to stop the joke and leave her alone. She repeated that she loved Demetrius. The Fairy King and Puck were watching as the four young people began to fight. The Fairy King blamed Puck for making a mistake, but Puck was happy. He thought it was fun to watch them fight. The king did not agree. He told Puck to make the night very dark so that the two men could not see each other. Then they would become tired and fall asleep. When they were asleep, Puck had to put some magic water in Lysander's eyes, and this would take away the magic that made him love Helena. Then everyone would be happy. Lysander would love Hermia instead of Helena, and Demetrius would love Helena instead of Hermia. Meanwhile, the king would find the queen and ask her for the servant he wanted and take the magic away from her eyes too. Puck tricked the two men so that they could not fight. He made the night very dark. They could not fight each other. He pretended to be Demetrius and called Lysander, and then he pretended to be Lysander and called Demetrius. Then he pretended to be Demetrius again, and so on, so that the two men ran all over the forest and became tired searching for each other. Lysander became tired first and lay down to rest. He decided to catch Demetrius in the morning and fight him then. He soon fell asleep. Puck continued to call out to Demetrius and hide from him until Demetrius became tired too, and lay down to rest. He decided to catch Lysander in the morning and fight him then. He also soon fell asleep. Helena, meanwhile, was still walking through the forest. She was very unhappy and tired. She loved Demetrius and wanted him to love her, but she did not want Lysander to love her, and she did not believe Demetrius when he said that he loved her now instead of Hermia. She thought they were playing a cruel joke on her. She did not see the two men sleeping on the ground and lay down to rest near them. She decided to return to Athens in the morning, and soon she also fell asleep. Puck saw Hermia and used his magic to bring her to the others. She was also very tired. She could not understand why Lysander loved Helena instead of her now, and didn't know what to do. Even Demetrius no longer loved her. She didn't see the others sleeping there and lay down to rest as well. Soon all four of them were asleep. Puck came to Lysander with the magic water that would undo the magic of the flowers. He put some on his eyes so that he would stop loving Helena and started loving Hermia again. Chapter 4. Everything is right at last. The queen of the fairies and Bottom were also becoming tired. He still had a donkey's head, and she still loved him, of course. He was enjoying the fairies that she gave him. She told them to do anything he asked. He called them one by one and gave them small jobs. He told one of them to scratch his head. "My head seems very hairy," he said. He told another one to get some honey from a bee and bring it to him. He told another one to help the first one scratch his head. The queen played music for him and asked him what he would like to eat. He said he was too tired to eat. The queen held him in her arms, and soon they were both asleep. Lysander, Demetrius, Helena, Hermia, the fairy queen, and Bottom were all asleep. The fairy king saw Puck watching them and told him that the queen gave him the servant he wanted. She didn't care about anyone or anything except Bottom, so she easily agreed to give up the servant. He was very pleased and decided to put the magic water on her eyes so that she would stop loving Bottom. When he woke her up, she told him that she had a strange dream. She dreamed that she loved a man with a donkey's head. The king showed her Bottom lying asleep on the ground. "That's him," she said. "How ugly he is! I hate him!" The king was very pleased because the trick was a success. The quarrel about the servant was over, and he and the queen loved each other again. The queen ordered the fairies to make music and danced with the king until morning. The king told Puck to take the donkey's head away from Bottom and make him normal again. Then they left the 2 men and the 2 women, as well as Bottom, lying asleep on the ground. Theseus, Hippolyta, and Aegeus were out early that morning to do some hunting. Theseus was telling Hippolyta about his wonderful hunting dogs when they found the 4 young people asleep on the ground. Aegeus saw that it was his daughter Hermia. "It's my daughter," he said, "and here are Demetrius and Lysander, and this is Helena. Why are they all sleeping in the forest? They must have heard about our plan to hunt. Perhaps they want to watch," said Theseus. "They must have fallen asleep while they were waiting for us to arrive." Then Theseus remembered something. He turned to Aegeus. "Isn't this the day that your daughter Hermia has to decide about her marriage?" he asked. Aegeus told him it was, and Theseus told the hunters to wake them all up. Theseus knew that Lysander and Demetrius were enemies. He asked them why they were both asleep in the same place in the forest. They seemed to be friends. Lysander told him about his plan to escape from Athens with Hermia and marry her. Aegeus heard this and demanded that Theseus should punish him for trying to steal the girl who should be Demetrius's wife. However, Demetrius told Theseus that he did not love Hermia now. He loved Helena. He did not know why he changed, but he knew that he wanted to stay with Helena for the rest of his life. Theseus told Aegeus that he should allow Hermia to marry Lysander. Theseus then ordered all of them to return to Athens. In Athens, they would all have a huge party and then get married. At first, the 4 young people thought that they were dreaming, but they soon realized that they were awake and everything was truly happening. They soon followed Theseus and Hippolyta to Athens. They were all very happy, because each one of them loved the person who loved them. Helena and Demetrius loved each other, and Hermia and Lysander loved each other too. Finally, Bottom woke up and found that he was alone. He remembered that he had a strange dream. In his dream, he looked like a donkey, but the fairy queen loved him, and the fairies did everything that he asked them to do. He decided that Quince should write a song about it for him to sing at the end of the play. The other actors were looking for Bottom, but couldn't find him. He wasn't at his house or anywhere else. They thought the play would be ruined without him. They were very disappointed. "He is the best actor," said Quince. "He is the only one who can play Pyramus." "We can't do it without him," said Flute, and they all agreed. When they discovered that there were going to be 3 weddings at the same time, they were even more disappointed. They were certain that the people who attended would be pleased and would give them a lot of money if they could perform the play, but everyone knew that they could not perform the play without Bottom. Suddenly, Bottom found them. They were very pleased to see him. He told them to hurry up and prepare for the play. They should check their lines and get their costumes ready, because the play would begin soon. Chapter 5. The actors perform their play. The 4 young people told Theseus and Hippolyta their stories. Theseus and Hippolyta thought they were very strange stories. They called Aegeus and asked him what entertainment there was that evening. "Will there be some music or a play?" asked Theseus. "It's a long time between dinner and bedtime if there is no entertainment." Lysander read out the names of some musicals and plays, and asked them to choose which one they would like to see. Theseus was interested in the play about Pyramus and Thisbe. The description said it was a short, boring, sad comedy. "It is like hot ice or black snow," said Theseus. "How can it be short and boring? How can it be sad and funny?" "I saw the actors practicing," replied Aegeus, "and it really is short, boring, sad, and funny. However, I don't think it is worth seeing because the actors are just poor workers from the city. They are not very good actors." Hippolyta agreed with Aegeus, but Theseus disagreed. "We should be kind to them because they want to please us," he said. He decided that they would see the play. Quince came in and read the prologue. He read it very badly. Theseus, Hippolyta, and Lysander complained about it and made jokes about it. Then Quince read the second prologue. He explained the story of the play and introduced the actors and their parts. The story was about Pyramus and Thisbe, who were secret lovers. Thisbe saw a lion and dropped her coat as she ran away from it. The lion tore the coat. Then Pyramus found the coat and thought that the lion had killed Thisbe. He was so sad that he killed himself. Then Thisbe found Pyramus dead on the ground. She was so sad that she killed herself too. Snout explained that he was the wall. He stood there and held his fingers apart. He explained that the gaps between his fingers were the holes in the wall. Pyramus and Thisbe often whispered to each other through these holes because their love was secret. Demetrius said that he had never heard a wall speak so well. Bottom and Flute, acting the parts of Pyramus and Thisbe, came and talked to each other through the hole in the wall. They said they loved each other and agreed to meet that night. The wall said that its job was finished, and Snout left the stage. Hippolyta said it was the silliest play she had ever seen. Snug came on as the lion. He was wearing a strange costume and did not look much like a lion at all. "I am a lion," he said, "but do not be afraid because I am not a real lion. My name is Snug." Starveling came out in the moonlight because it was dark that night. He held a lamp. "This lamp is the moon," he said, "and I am the man in the moon." Theseus laughed. "If he is the man in the moon, he should be in the lamp," he said. Then Flute returned as Thisbe. The lion roared at her, and she ran away, dropping her coat. The lion picked it up with its mouth and tore it with its teeth. Bottom came on as Pyramus. He was looking for Thisbe. He found her coat and thought that the lion had killed her. He was very sad. He took out his sword and killed himself. "But I am not really dead," said Bottom. "I am Bottom, and I am still alive." Flute came back as Thisbe and found her lover dead. She was very sad. She took out a knife and killed herself. "But I am not really dead," said Flute. "I am Flute, and I am still alive." Bottom asked the audience if they wanted to see the epilogue. Perhaps they would prefer to see the actors dance. Theseus said the play did not need an epilogue because all the actors were dead. He said they acted very well, but the writer was not very good. The actors danced for the audience. When the audience and the actors left the stage, the king and the queen of the fairies came back. Many fairies came with them. They sang and danced. They promised that the 3 marriages would all be happy and that they would all have beautiful children. "Just remember," said Puck, "that this story is only a dream." As You Like It. Chapter 1. A wrestling match and a love match. Oliver, Jacques, and Orlando were 3 brothers. Oliver was the oldest. When their father, Sir Roland Dubois, died, Oliver inherited the large farm on which they lived. Oliver liked Jacques and paid for him to go to school, but he didn't like Orlando and made him work on the farm. Although their father left some money for Orlando, Oliver refused to give it to him. He argued that he would only waste it and then have to beg to stay alive. Orlando was very unhappy about this. He was angry with his oldest brother. He attacked him and held him by the throat. He demanded some money so that he could leave the farm and make his own fortune. Oliver promised to give him some money and sent him back to work. A man called Charles came to visit Oliver. He was the Duke's wrestler. He told Oliver that the old Duke had been banished by his younger brother, whose name was Frederick. The old Duke went to live in the forest. Many of his friends went there to live with him. However, the old Duke's daughter, whose name was Roslyn, did not go there to live with him. She stayed with the new Duke because she was very friendly with his daughter, whose name was Celia. They were cousins and were always together. They loved each other like sisters. Charles told Oliver that he was worried about his younger brother Orlando. Someone told him that Orlando planned to wrestle against him the next day, and Charles did not want to hurt him and make Oliver angry. He thought that Oliver should try to stop him because Orlando was not very big or strong. However, Oliver told him that Orlando was a very bad brother, and he didn't care what happened to him. In fact, he said, "You'd better make sure you beat him. He is the kind of person who will find some way of getting revenge if he thinks you did not take him seriously. Secretly, Oliver hoped that Charles would kill Orlando. Charles promised that he would take Orlando very seriously when he wrestled him. Roslyn and Celia were walking in the garden at the Duke's palace. Roslyn was sad because she was thinking about her banished father. Celia tried to make her happy. She reminded Roslyn that the new Duke, her father, had no other children. "When he dies," she promised, "I will inherit the palace, and I will give it to you. It should be yours because it should be your father's." They sat down on a bench to continue their conversation. A young man called LeBeau came and told them about the wrestling match. "It's going to take place here," he told them. "Charles is a very good wrestler, and it is very difficult to defeat him. Many people try, but he defeats them all. Sometimes they die of their injuries." Duke Frederick arrived with some of his friends and prepared to watch the wrestling match. When the two girls saw the wrestlers, they worried about Orlando because he was not very big or strong. It looked like Charles could easily defeat him. They called Orlando to come to them and tried to persuade him not to wrestle. "It's too dangerous," they said, but he would not listen. He wrestled with Charles and won. Charles could not speak or walk, and some men carried him away. Duke Frederick asked Orlando who he was. "I am Orlando, the youngest son of Sir Roland Dubois," said Orlando. The Duke was disappointed and said that Sir Roland had been his enemy. "What a pity," he said. "If you'd had a better father, I would have given you a reward." He and his friends laughed. Celia was ashamed of her father because he behaved so badly. Roslyn, however, was pleased because Orlando won and because Sir Roland was her father's friend. She complimented Orlando. Then she gave him a necklace from around her neck. He fell in love with her, but LeBeau warned him that he should leave because the Duke would take revenge on him. Orlando asked him about the two girls and discovered who they were. "The short one is Duke Frederick's daughter," said LeBeau. "Her name is Celia. The taller one is her cousin Roslyn. Her father is the old Duke, who now lives in the forest." Chapter 2. Orlando and Roslyn both leave their homes. The next day, Roslyn and Celia were walking in the garden again, and Roslyn was sad and quiet. "What is the matter?" asked Celia. "Are you thinking about your father again?" "Yes," she answered. "But that is not all." She told Celia that she loved Orlando. Celia was happy for her. Duke Frederick saw them in the garden and approached them with some of his friends. He told Roslyn that she must leave the palace and never return. Roslyn was surprised. "Me?" she asked. "Yes, you," he replied. "You have 10 days to depart. If I find you here after that, you will die." "But why, uncle?" she asked. "Because I do not trust you. You are your father's daughter, and that is reason enough." Roslyn and Celia argued with him, but it was no use. He refused to change his mind. Celia said that she would go with Roslyn, and her father called her a fool. When they were alone, the two girls made a plan. They decided that they would both leave Duke Frederick and try to find Roslyn's father in the forest. Roslyn thought it was dangerous for two girls to travel alone, so they decided that she would dress like a man and that Celia would wear poor clothes. They took new names for themselves. Roslyn said she would be Ganymede, and Celia said she would be Aliena. Then they decided to ask their best friend at the palace, Touchstone, the jester, to come with them. Duke Frederick was angry when he discovered that his daughter Celia was missing. His servants told him that the jester was also missing and that one of the maids heard them talking about Orlando. The Duke thought they might try to go to him, and he ordered his servants to bring Orlando to the palace. If Orlando was not there, they had to bring his brother Oliver. Duke Frederick's soldiers could not find Orlando, so they brought Oliver to the palace. The Duke told him to find his brother. If he did not find him, Frederick would take all his land. Oliver told him that he would be happy to find him and bring him to the Duke because he never loved his brother anyway. Meanwhile, Roslyn's father was in the forest with his friends. It was a beautiful day. "Isn't this better than all the palaces in the world?" said the old Duke to one of his friends. "There is no danger here, and we can truly be ourselves." His friend agreed and said he would not change it. Another friend told him that he saw a man called Jacques studying near the river, and the old Duke asked him to take him there. Orlando was on his way home after the wrestling match when he met Adam, an old servant who was loyal to him. Adam warned him that Oliver knew about his success and was very angry. He heard Oliver plan to burn the house in which Orlando slept, hoping to kill him. If this didn't kill Orlando, Oliver would find another way. Adam told Orlando not to go into the house. "But where shall I go?" asked Orlando. "It doesn't matter," replied the servant. "But don't come home. I will not beg on the streets," said Orlando. "I will go and face my brother." Adam told Orlando that he had some money, which he had saved to use when he was old. "Take that money," he said, "and let me come with you as your servant." Orlando thanked him and praised the servant. He accepted Adam's offer, and they departed together. Chapter 3. Roslyn and Orlando both find homes in the forest. Roslyn and Celia went to the forest with Touchstone the jester. Roslyn was dressed like a man and called herself Ganymede. They walked a long way and became very tired. They met Silvius, a young shepherd, and his friend Corin, an older man. They heard Silvius telling Corin about his love for a girl called Phoebe, and this reminded Roslyn of her love for Orlando. She and Touchstone began to talk about love, but Celia said she was hungry. Perhaps the shepherds would sell them some food. They spoke to Corin, and he told them that the owner of the sheep, a man called Carlin, was selling his house and sheep. Roslyn and Celia decided that they would buy them and employ Corin as a shepherd. Orlando and Adam were also walking in the forest. Adam was very hungry. "I can't walk any further," he said. "I am too hungry. I will lie down here and die. You can prepare my grave. Goodbye, master." Orlando picked him up and carried him. "I will take you to a safe place," he promised, "and then I will find you some food." In another part of the forest, the old Duke's friends met Jacques. They were preparing a meal for the old Duke. One of them began to sing to him about the pleasures of living in the forest, where the only enemy is the cold of winter. Jacques enjoyed the song and asked for more. Then he sang a song of his own. He sang about fools who left their wealth and their easy lives to live in the forest. They told Jacques that the old Duke was looking for him. He told them that he wanted to avoid the old Duke because he could not argue with him, and departed. When the old Duke came for his meal, he still wanted to talk to Jacques, and told his friends to go and find him. Just then Jacques arrived. He and the old Duke began to talk. Suddenly, Orlando came in with his sword and told them not to eat any of the food that was ready for the meal. He told them that he needed the food, and they should not touch it until he had what he needed. They told him that he didn't need a sword and that he was welcome to sit down and eat. They would happily share their food with him. Orlando was surprised. He thought that all the people in the forest were cruel and greedy, but realized that these people were not like that. He apologized and asked them whether he could bring his old friend to eat with them. They agreed and promised not to eat anything until he returned. The old Duke and Jacques continued their conversation. Jacques compared life with a stage on which all the men and women were actors. He said that each man played 7 parts. He described each part. He said the first part was when a man was a baby, and the last part was an old man ready to die, and just like a baby again. Orlando returned, carrying Adam, and they welcomed him. The old Duke told them to eat and ordered one of his servants to sing for them. Orlando told the old Duke that he was the son of Sir Roland, and this made the old Duke very happy, because he had been a good friend of Sir Roland. He told Orlando that he was the old Duke and that Orlando should stay with him in this cave. Orlando wrote poems about his love for Roslyn and put them in the trees of the forest. He also carved her name in the trees. Roslyn found one of the poems and read it to Corin and Touchstone. Touchstone found one too and read it out loud. Then Celia found one and read it. They all agreed that the poems were not very good. Celia asked Roslyn if she knew who wrote the poems. Roslyn didn't know and couldn't guess, so Celia told her she had seen Orlando writing them. Roslyn could not believe it at first. When she finally did believe it, she asked a lot of questions. What did he do when you saw him? What did he say? What did he look like? Why is he in the forest? Did he ask for me? Where is he staying? How did you part? When will you see him again? Does he know I am here? Does he look as good as when he wrestled? Celia tried to answer the questions, but Roslyn kept interrupting her. Before she could tell Roslyn very much at all, Orlando himself arrived, talking to Jacques. They were so busy talking that they did not see Roslyn and Celia. Jacques was talking about some of the poems he saw in the trees and asked Orlando about his love. Orlando told him how much he loved Roslyn, but Jacques thought he was a fool. When Jacques left, Roslyn came out and talked to Orlando. He did not realize that he was speaking with Roslyn, because she was still dressed as a man. Where do you live? He asked her. I live here with my sister, replied Roslyn. Orlando thought that she spoke too well to live in the forest. She explained that her old uncle taught her to speak like that. My uncle did not like women, she said, so I am pleased that I am not one. What did he say about them? Asked Orlando. She wouldn't tell him. She said that she did not want to waste the things she knew on someone who was a fool. But, she added, there is a fool in this forest who carves Roslyn on the trees and hangs poems in their branches. If I met him, I would give him some good advice because I think he needs it. Orlando admitted that he was the fool she was talking about. You don't look like a man in love, she told him. You are too well dressed and cared for, like a man who loves himself rather than someone else. Orlando insisted that he was in love. He told his new friend that he loved Roslyn so much that it was impossible to describe it. Roslyn told him that love was like a sickness, and she could cure him. She told him that she once cured a lover by pretending to be the one he loved and acting like a woman. Her old uncle knew some magic and taught her how to do this. I kept changing my mind, she said. I cried for no reason. I laughed for no reason. I liked him for no reason. I hated him for no reason. In the end, he saw how foolish it was to love a woman and went to live in a monastery. I will cure you too, if you come to my house every day and pretend I am the woman you love. Orlando agreed, and they went to Roslyn's house. Orlando asked what her name was, and Roslyn told him that it didn't matter. He must call her Roslyn. Chapter 4. Orlando saves his brother from a lion. Touchstone, the jester, met a woman in the forest. She looked after goats, and her name was Audrey. He offered to help her look after the goats. He talked to her about love, poetry, and truth. She asked him some questions about it, but it was clear that she did not understand what he said. Even so, he was very pleased with her and decided to marry her. He believed that it was better to be married than to be single. He arranged for the wedding to take place in the forest. He asked the priest from the next village to come and perform the wedding. When the priest arrived, he said that the law insisted that someone had to give the woman to the man. If there was no one to do this, he could not perform the wedding. At that moment, Jacques came along and offered to do it. He asked Touchstone if he wanted to be married. Yes, said Touchstone. But why are you marrying here? Asked Jacques. You should be married in a church, so that the wedding is proper. I do not want a proper wedding, answered Touchstone. If the wedding is not proper, then I have a good excuse to leave my wife later. However, Jacques persuaded Touchstone to marry in the church. So they left the priest in the forest and went to the village. Roslyn and Celia were in the house waiting for Orlando to arrive. He was late, and Celia said that he could not be in love. If he were in love, he would not be late. Roslyn began to argue with her, but Corinne came in and told them that his friend Sylvius was nearby, and that he was meeting with Phoebe, the girl he loved. They decided to go and see them. Sylvius begged Phoebe to say that she loved him. If you don't love me, he said, Tell me kindly and not cruelly." She told him that she did not love him and had no pity for him. Roslyn was angry with her and told her she was proud and cruel. Then she told Silvius that he was a fool to follow her because she did not want his love. She told Phoebe that she should be thankful for the love of a good man and accept it. Phoebe, however, thinking that Roslyn was a man, began to fall in love with her. "Don't fall in love with me." Roslyn warned her, "I am more false than the promises made by men when they drink too much, and I don't like you." Roslyn and Celia left, and Silvius again asked Phoebe to love him. She pitied him and agreed to be his friend. "Don't expect anything more than that," she warned him. Then she asked about the young man who spoke to her. She liked him a lot, and thought that he would grow into a very good and handsome man. She said she didn't love him or hate him, but she was annoyed about some of the things he said. She decided to write him a letter, which Silvius was to bring to him. Roslyn and Celia were returning to their house in the forest when they met Jacques. Jacques wanted to know more about the young man, who was really Roslyn, and they began to talk. But they were interrupted when Orlando came. "Good morning, dear Roslyn," he said. Jacques left, and Roslyn was angry with Orlando. "You are late. Where have you been?" she asked. "Do you call this love? If you ever do that again, you do not need to come to my house again." "I am only 1 hour late," protested Orlando. 1 hour late and in love? I might as well be loved by a snail," said Roslyn. "A snail might be slow, but he loves his wife and looks after her by carrying his house on his back. I love my Roslyn," said Orlando. "I am your Roslyn," said Roslyn. "He has a better Roslyn than you," said Celia. "What would you say now if I were your very own Roslyn?" asked Roslyn. Orlando said that he would not say anything. He would kiss her first. Roslyn did not agree. She thought he should speak first. "Only lovers who have nothing to say will begin with kissing," she said. They continued to talk like this for a while, and then Roslyn decided that they would pretend to marry. Celia would pretend to be the priest. Afterwards, Roslyn talked to him further about the ways of women until Orlando had to leave and have dinner with the old Duke. He promised to return in 2 hours. Roslyn was delighted with his visit because she loved him so much. Roslyn and Celia waited 2 hours for Orlando to return, but instead of Orlando, Silvius arrived. He came to Roslyn and gave her a letter. "I don't know what's in it," he said. "Phoebe asked me to bring it to you. She looked annoyed when she wrote it, so I think it will not be pleasant. Don't blame me. I am only the messenger." Roslyn read the letter. "She says I am not handsome and do not know how to behave. She says I am proud and that she could not love me if I were the last man on earth. What a strange letter. I do not want her love." Then she accused Silvius of writing the letter himself. He denied it, but Roslyn insisted that no woman could write such a cruel letter. Finally, she read the letter to him. The letter did not insult her, but was a love letter. Phoebe loved Ganymede, who was really Roslyn, and offered herself to him. Silvius was disappointed, and Celia felt sorry for him. Roslyn said that he did not deserve pity because he gave his love to the wrong woman. "Tell her that if she loves me, she should love you," she told him and sent him away. As he left, Oliver came in. He said he had a message from Orlando for the young man he called Roslyn. The message was a piece of cloth with some blood on it. "What does this mean?" asked Roslyn. He told them this story. When Orlando left that place, he promised to return in 2 hours. As he walked through the forest, he saw an old man lying asleep under a tree. A snake was around his neck and was about to bite him. When it saw Orlando, it slid away. Orlando watched it go under a bush and saw that a lion was waiting there. Lions will not attack sleeping animals, but wait until they wake up. It was watching the sleeping man, ready to kill and eat him, when he woke up. Orlando approached the man and saw it was his elder brother. Celia remembered that Orlando spoke about his elder brother and said he was a cruel man. Oliver agreed that he was, but Roslyn was impatient to hear the rest of the story. He continued. Orlando thought about leaving his cruel brother there and letting the lion kill him. However, said Oliver, he decided to attack the lion and rescue his brother. He fought the lion and chased it away. I woke up to see it running away. Are you his brother? Exclaimed Celia. Is it you he rescued? Exclaimed Roslyn. Yes and no, he answered. It was me, but now I am a different man. But what about the blood on the piece of cloth? Asked Roslyn. Yes, said Oliver. He continued. The two brothers spoke together for a while, and then Orlando took Oliver to the old Duke, who gave him new clothes and some food. Then Orlando showed his arm where the lion injured him. It was bleeding, and it hurt him. He cried out in pain and asked for Roslyn. Oliver helped him bind up the wound, and after a while Orlando sent him to bring the message and apologize for the broken promise. He asked Oliver to give the piece of cloth with his blood on it to the young shepherd boy he called Roslyn. Roslyn listened to the end of the story. Then she fainted. After a few moments, Roslyn felt better. Celia and Oliver gently helped her to get up. Oliver thought for a moment, and said that the young shepherd did not have the heart of a man. Roslyn looked at Oliver and agreed with him. I should have been a woman, she said, and made him promise to tell Orlando that she had pretended to faint when she saw his blood. Chapter 5. Everyone is Happy. Oliver fell in love with Celia and told his brother. Orlando was surprised but agreed that he should marry her. Oliver was happy to let Orlando have everything on the farm, and he would live as a simple shepherd with his new wife. He thought her name was Alina, but it was really Celia. They decided that the wedding would be held the next day. They told Roslyn, and she asked why Orlando could not marry his Roslyn at the same time. Orlando thought she was joking, but she told him that she could make sure that Roslyn would be there tomorrow, and that she would marry him. Phoebe and Silvius came to visit them. Phoebe was angry that Roslyn had shown Silvius the letter she wrote. Roslyn said she did not care, and told Phoebe she should love the good man who loved her. Silvius described what his love was like. Phoebe said that was how she felt about Ganymede, and Orlando said that was how he felt about Roslyn, and Roslyn said that was how she felt about no woman. Why can't you love me? Phoebe asked Roslyn. Why can't you love me? Silvius asked Phoebe. Why can't you love me? Asked Orlando. Who are you asking? Roslyn asked Orlando. Someone who is not here and cannot hear, replied Orlando. Roslyn promised them all that if they met again tomorrow, they would all marry the one they loved. The next day they all met. The old Duke wondered if the young man, who was really Roslyn, could do everything he promised. Orlando told him that this young man had learned magic from his uncle. He hoped that he could do it all. Roslyn made sure that everyone would keep their promises. She made the old Duke promise to give his daughter Roslyn to Orlando. She made Orlando promise to marry Roslyn. She made Phoebe promise to marry Ganymede, but if she refused to marry Ganymede, she had to marry Silvius. She made Silvius promise to marry Phoebe if she agreed. They all agreed, and Roslyn and Celia left. The old Duke thought Ganymede reminded him of his daughter, and Orlando said that when he first met him, he thought he was Roslyn's brother. Roslyn and Celia returned as themselves, no longer in disguise. Roslyn's father was very pleased to see her. Orlando was very pleased to see her too. Phoebe was not very pleased to see her because now she understood that Ganymede was not a man. She agreed to marry Silvius, which pleased Silvius very much. A messenger arrived to tell them that Duke Frederick had decided to fight against his brother, the old Duke, and kill him and his friends. However, he met an old religious man on the way and talked to him. This man convinced Duke Frederick that he was wrong, and Frederick decided to stop the fight and go into a monastery. This meant that the old Duke could go back to the palace. In the end, Roslyn married Orlando, who was now friends with his brother Oliver. Oliver married Celia. Silvius married Phoebe. Touchstone married Audrey, and the old Duke went back to his palace. They had a wonderful party and danced all night. 12th night. Chapter 1. The Unusual Result of a Shipwreck. It was a dark and stormy night in the faraway land of Illyria. The sea was wild and dangerous. The waves were huge. A small ship tried to sail to safety. The sailors shouted, and the wind howled. On the ship were Viola and Sebastian. They were twins and looked exactly the same, although Viola was a girl and Sebastian was a boy. Water splashed over the ship. At last the ship had so much water in it that it sank in the large waves. Many of the sailors and passengers drowned, but some were rescued and came to the land. One of the survivors was Viola, and another was the captain of the ship. Viola was worried about her twin brother Sebastian, because she did not see him after the ship sank. Was he alive or dead? The captain said that he saw him after the boat sank, but did not know whether he survived. The captain had been born near the place where they were, and told Viola about the ruler of this place. He was called Duke Orsino. Viola said that her father knew him and said good things about him. The captain said he was young and single, and that he loved Olivia, the daughter of a count. However, added the captain, Olivia is in mourning. Her father and brother both died a short time ago, and she is very sad. She vowed not to marry for 7 years. Not only had Olivia vowed not to marry for 7 years, but she also would not accept any visits from men until then. Viola thought about what she should do. It was dangerous to be alone as a girl. She asked the captain to help her, and dressed up as a boy. Her plan was to go to Duke Orsino, and ask to serve him as a singer, because she could sing very well. Olivia had an uncle called Sir Toby Belch. He loved to go to parties at night and drink wine and be happy. He couldn't understand why his niece would refuse to accept visits from men for 7 years just because her father and brother were dead. Olivia was annoyed at the way he behaved and asked her maid, Maria, to tell Sir Toby to be more reasonable. Sir Toby brought a friend to stay at the palace. His name was Sir Andrew Toothache, and Sir Toby thought it would be a good idea if his niece Olivia married this man. Sir Andrew Toothache was old and fat, and Olivia did not like him. Sir Andrew went to parties with Sir Toby and drank wine with him. Sir Toby thought that if Sir Andrew married Olivia, he would have more money to spend on having fun. Sir Andrew tried to visit Olivia, but she refused. Then he heard that Duke Orsino wanted to marry her, so he decided to go home. Sir Toby persuaded him to stay. He told Sir Andrew that he heard Olivia say that she would not marry the Duke or accept a visit from him. Viola dressed herself as a boy and called herself Cesario. Duke Orsino believed Viola was a boy and gave her a job as a servant. She quickly became one of his favorites. The Duke told her about his love for Olivia and said he would send her to visit Olivia to tell her about his love. He hoped that Olivia would accept a visit from Viola because he was a boy rather than a man. Viola didn't want to do it because she secretly loved the Duke and wanted him to marry her. Of course, she could not tell him this because the Duke was in love with Olivia. Chapter 2. Viola's First Visit to Olivia. Olivia was in her palace, talking to her servant, Malvolio, when Maria came in to tell her that there was a messenger at the door who wanted to speak to her. "Is it a messenger for Orsino?" asked Olivia. "I don't know," answered Maria. "He is a very pleasant-looking young man." Olivia sent Malvolio to speak to the messenger. "If he is from the Duke, tell him I am sick, or in bed, or asleep." Malvolio returned to say that the messenger would not go away. He insisted on speaking to Olivia and would stay at the door until she let him in. Olivia asked him to describe the messenger. "He is very young," replied Malvolio. "He is too young to be a man and too old to be a boy. His voice is like a girl's voice, but he speaks very well." Olivia decided to see this messenger. She put on her veil, and Viola came in. Viola said that she had a secret message for the lady of the house. Olivia asked the other servants to leave so that she could hear it. When they were alone, Viola asked Olivia to remove her veil, and she did. Viola told her that she was very beautiful and that Orsino was right to love her. Olivia told her that although Orsino was a good man, she could not love him. Olivia liked Viola. Of course, she thought Viola was a young man. When Viola left, Olivia took a ring from her finger and called Malvolio. "I want you to go after that young man and give him this ring. Tell him he left it behind and that I do not want it. I do not love Orsino. Tell the messenger I will tell him my reasons if he comes back tomorrow." Malvolio went after Viola and met her as she was going back to Orsino's palace. He offered her the ring and gave her Olivia's message. "I didn't leave a ring," Viola said to herself. She wondered why Olivia sent the ring, and then she realized that Olivia, thinking she was a boy, was in love with her. She didn't want the ring and refused to take it. Malvolio threw it on the ground. "If you want it back, there it is," he said. "If you don't want it, let someone else find it." Malvolio left, and Viola picked up the ring. She didn't know what to do. She loved Orsino, but Orsino thought she was a boy. Orsino loved Olivia, but Olivia didn't love him. Olivia thought Viola was a boy and loved her. Sebastian, Viola's twin brother, did not drown. Somebody rescued him, and he survived. He was very sad because he believed his sister was dead. He decided to visit Duke Orsino. His friend Antonio also survived and went with him, although he did not want to be recognized. Only a short time ago, he had fought against Orsino in a battle. Antonio was afraid that the soldiers would see him. If they did, they would arrest him and punish him. One night, Sir Toby and Sir Andrew went to a party. They drank a lot of wine at the party and were very happy. They came home to Olivia's palace very late. When they came in, they made a lot of noise and laughed loudly at their own jokes. Then they began to sing some songs. Maria came and warned them that Olivia was annoyed by the noise. A few moments later, Malvolio came and spoke to them. He was very angry. He told them that Olivia said that because Sir Toby was her uncle, they could stay in the house if they were quiet. If they could not keep quiet, she wanted them to leave. They didn't like Malvolio, who was always very serious and never laughed at jokes. They told him to go away and ordered Maria to give them some more wine. Maria didn't like Malvolio either, and plotted against him with Sir Toby and Sir Andrew. She told them that she would write him a love letter, pretending to be Olivia. Her writing and Olivia's writing were almost exactly the same. He would think that Olivia was in love with him and make a fool of himself. Before they went to bed that night, Sir Andrew told Sir Toby that he needed to marry Olivia because he had no money of his own left. Chapter 3. Love, Pity, and Cruelty. Orsino spoke to Viola about his love for Olivia. Viola seemed to know what love was. "Although you are young, Cesario, you know about love," said Orsino. "Are you in love?" "Yes," replied Viola. "What kind of a woman is she?" asked Orsino. Viola said it was someone of about the age of Orsino. "Then she is too old," Orsino said. "It is better for the man to be older than the woman. If the woman is younger, she will accept the man more easily. As well as this, a woman is only beautiful for a short time, while she is young, just like a rose." Then Orsino told Viola to take another message to Olivia. "Tell her that I love her. Tell her that my love is pure. Tell her that I don't care about her land or her possessions. I only care for her." "But what if she can't love you?" asked Viola. "I cannot accept that answer," answered the Duke. "But you must," said Viola. "Perhaps there is a lady somewhere who loves you as much as you love Olivia. You cannot love this lady because you love Olivia. She must accept that answer, don't you think?" Orsino had his answer ready. He said that no woman could love him the way he loved Olivia, because a woman's love is weaker than a man's love. "A woman's love is like an appetite," he said. "My love is like real hunger. You can't compare the way a woman might love me with the way I love Olivia." Viola disagreed. "My father had a daughter who loved a man as much as I might love you if I were a woman. She never told her love, but hid it because she knew that the man could not love her. She was extremely sad, but always smiled. We men say more about love and make wonderful promises, but women love as much without saying as much." Orsino liked this answer. He gave Viola a jewel to take to Olivia. "Hurry," he said. "My love can't wait." Malvolio was walking along the path in the garden. He was thinking what it would be like if Olivia loved him and were to marry him. He would be the count instead of the servant. He remembered the story of a servant who married a female servant of higher rank. People can marry above their rank, he said to himself. If I were married to her, I would tell the servants to bring my uncle Sir Toby to me. He would come and bow to me, and I would give him a little smile. Then I would tell him he must stop going to parties and drinking so much wine. I would also tell him he wastes too much time with his foolish friend Sir Andrew. He didn't realize that Sir Toby and Sir Andrew heard everything he said. They were hiding in the garden waiting for him to find Maria's letter. They were very angry to hear him speak like this. Then Malvolio found Maria's letter on the path where Maria had left it. He immediately thought it was Olivia's writing, and he began to read the letter. He was surprised to discover that it was a love letter. It said that her love must remain a secret, and that she could not tell anyone whom it was that she loved. Sir Toby and Sir Andrew watched as Malvolio read the letter. Some of the things he read made him think that he might be the one Olivia loved. It said that the one she loved should not be afraid of her greatness. Soon Malvolio was certain that Olivia loved him. The letter finished by saying that she hoped the one she loved would show his love by always smiling, because he had a beautiful smile. He should also wear yellow clothes because she thought they were very pretty. Malvolio decided that he would always wear yellow clothes and smile when he was with Olivia. Sir Toby and Sir Andrew complimented Maria on the letter. They told her she was very clever. The letter would certainly make a fool of Malvolio. She laughed. "Watch him now when he comes to my lady Olivia," she said. "She hates yellow, and she is far too unhappy to enjoy Malvolio's smiles. She is in mourning. They will only make her angry." Viola went to Olivia's palace, carrying the jewel from Orsino. She met Olivia's jester and joked with him like a man. Finally, the jester told her that Olivia was home. Sir Toby and Sir Andrew met her and told her that Olivia was waiting for the messenger from Orsino. But before she could go to Olivia, Olivia came to her. She told all the others to leave her alone with the messenger. "What is your name?" she asked. "I am your servant, Cesario," replied Viola. "My servant?" said Olivia. "You are Duke Orsinio's servant." "Yes, but he is your servant," answered Viola. "And your servant's servant is your servant." Then Viola began to give her Orsino's love message, but Olivia stopped her. "Don't speak about him again," she said. "Tell me what you thought when I sent the ring after you the last time you were here." Viola knew that Olivia thought she was a young man, and that her name was Cesario. She also knew that Olivia loved her. "I pity you," she said. "That's a kind of love," said Olivia. But Viola did not agree. "We sometimes pity even our enemies," she replied. "That's a very good answer," said Olivia. "When you are older, he will be a wonderful husband for someone." Viola began to leave without giving Olivia the message from Orsino, but Olivia was in love. She called Viola back. "Cesario, I love you," she said. "I cannot give reasons for my love, but neither can I hide it." She began to say more, but Viola stopped her. "Goodbye," she said. "I will bring no more messages from the Duke." "No, please come again," begged Olivia. "You might persuade me to love him in the end." Viola departed without replying. Chapter 4. Sir Toby's plans are spoiled by Sebastian. Sir Andrew came to tell Sir Toby that he was going home. "Why?" asked Sir Toby. "I have no hope of marrying your niece Olivia," he replied. "I just saw her talk more kindly to Orsinio's messenger than she ever speaks to me. I saw them in the garden." "Did she see you watching?" asked Sir Toby. "Yes," answered Sir Andrew. "Well then," continued Sir Toby, "this was her way to make you jealous. You should have gone to them and shown them that you are much cleverer than that young man. You missed your chance. You will have to do something brave to win her heart." "What should I do?" asked Sir Andrew. "You should fight a duel with the Count's messenger," said Sir Toby. "Women love brave men. My niece will like you more if you can defeat him in a fight. Go and write a letter to the young man. with as many lies as you like, so that he will challenge you to a duel." Sir Andrew thought this was a good idea and went away to write the letter. Maria saw Sir Toby and told him about the funny things that Malvolio was doing. He was wearing yellow clothes and smiling at everything. She said it was very funny to see. They laughed. Sir Toby went with Maria to watch Malvolio make a fool of himself. Sebastian, Viola's twin brother, arrived in the town with his friend Antonio and went for a walk around the town. Antonio was worried about some enemies he might have in this town because he once fought against Duke Orsino in a battle. He did not want anyone to see him, and he was worried about his money. He gave Sebastian the money and went straight to the Elephant Hotel to rest and sleep. They agreed to meet there in an hour, and Sebastian went on by himself. Olivia wanted to see Cesario again, so she sent Viola an invitation. Viola said she would come. Olivia wanted Malvolio to help her prepare for the visit. She asked Maria to get Malvolio, and Maria warned her that Malvolio was behaving very strangely. When Malvolio arrived, he was dressed in yellow and smiled like a fool. Olivia asked him if he was sick, and he began to repeat parts of the letter he had found and read, thinking that Olivia would recognize them. Of course, she didn't, because she didn't write the letter. She began to think that Malvolio was mad. But just then, another servant arrived to tell her that the messenger from Duke Orsino was at the door. She left Malvolio, telling Maria to make sure that Sir Toby looked after him. Malvolio took this as more proof that she loved him. Sir Toby came to look after him and treated him like a madman. Malvolio got angry and left. Sir Toby and Maria congratulated themselves on their wonderful trick. Then they decided to continue the trick by tying Malvolio up and locking him in a dark room to cure his madness. Sir Andrew saw them and showed them the letter he wrote to the Duke's messenger. He wanted to make the messenger angry so that he would challenge Sir Andrew to a duel. The letter was very silly, but he thought it was a good one. He gave the letter to Sir Toby to give to the messenger, and then he went to wait in a corner of the garden for the messenger to come by. Sir Toby did not deliver the letter to Viola, however, because he knew it was a silly letter and would not make the messenger angry at all. He decided to deliver the challenge by word of mouth. Olivia still wanted Viola to love her and gave her a jewel and her picture. She asked what else she could give him. "Only that you give my master your love," answered Viola. "How can I give him what I have already given you?" asked Olivia. Viola wanted to leave, but Olivia begged her to come again the next day and would not let her depart until she agreed. Sir Toby stopped Viola on her way out of the palace. "I don't know what terrible thing you have done to Sir Andrew," he said, "but he is waiting in the garden to fight a duel with you." "You are making a mistake," said Viola. "I am sure that no man has a quarrel with me." She thought it was very strange. Sir Toby left Viola in the care of another servant and went to see Sir Andrew. He told Sir Andrew that the young messenger was very angry at the challenge, and that he was a very good fighter. Sir Andrew was afraid and did not want to fight. He even promised to give Viola his horse to stop the duel. Viola was also afraid and did not want to fight. Sir Toby acted as a messenger between the two duelers. He told them both the same thing. "Your opponent does not want to fight, but must keep his vow. He will fight for a short time, but will not hurt you." Just as they took out their swords to pretend to fight, Antonio arrived. He saw them about to duel. Of course, he thought that Viola dressed as a man was Sebastian and tried to stop the duel by fighting Sir Toby. However, before they could begin, some soldiers recognized Antonio and arrested him. Antonio could not fight them. He still thought Viola was Sebastian and asked him to return his money because he would need it. Viola did not know what he was talking about. Antonio couldn't understand why Sebastian refused to return his money. He reminded Viola of all the wonderful things he had done for him, but this did not help. Viola said that she did not know him. "You are cruel, Sebastian!" shouted Antonio as the soldiers led him away. Then Viola realized that Antonio thought she was Sebastian, but she did not dare to think that her brother might still be alive. Sir Toby and Sir Andrew heard what Antonio and Viola said and decided that Viola was a dishonest young man. Not only that, he was ungrateful, a liar, and a coward. Sir Andrew thought that he should still fight him to show Olivia how brave he was. Chapter 5. Fighting, Madness, and Marriage. Olivia sent a servant to find Cesario because she could not wait to see him again. The servant found Sebastian instead. The servant called him Cesario and begged him to come back to Olivia. Sebastian became very annoyed with the servant. "You don't know me," he kept saying. "Go away. I don't know anyone called Olivia. I don't know anyone called Cesario either." Sir Andrew saw them and also thought that Sebastian was Cesario, who was really Viola. He hit Sebastian and called him a coward. Sebastian hit him back. Sir Toby tried to stop them from killing each other and ended up biting Sebastian himself. Olivia came to see what all the noise was and found them fighting. Of course, she also thought that Sebastian was Cesario and was angry with Sir Toby for fighting him. She told him to leave and told Sebastian to come into the palace. Malvolio was still locked in a dark room to cure him of his madness. Maria and Sir Toby asked the jester to dress as a priest and visit him. He went to the room and spoke to Malvolio through the door. Malvolio complained that it was dark in the room, but the jester told him that there were large windows in the room and it could not be dark. Malvolio insisted that he was not mad, and the jester had some silly conversation with him, which he said proved that Malvolio really was mad. Sir Toby asked the jester to stop. He was afraid that his niece Olivia, who was already angry with him for fighting Cesario, would be even angrier if she found out about this trick. She might make him leave the palace. However, the jester was enjoying himself too much and would not stop. Malvolio begged for some paper and a pen so that he could write Olivia a letter and tell her that he was not mad. The jester got the paper and pen for him. Malvolio wrote a letter and gave it to the jester to bring to Olivia. Sebastian could not understand all the strange and wonderful things that were happening to him. Why did the servant call him Cesario? Who was Olivia? Why did that fat man hit him and want to fight him? Why did the beautiful young countess rescue him and give him a beautiful jewel and take him into her palace? He thought that he might be mad. Then Olivia came in with a priest and asked him to marry her. They would have a small private wedding and tell everyone about it later. He looked at Olivia, saw how beautiful she was, fell in love, and agreed at once to marry her. Orsino was still in love with Olivia and decided to go and see her himself. He took Viola with him and went to her palace. While he was waiting at the door, Antonio and the soldiers came past. "This is the man that rescued me," said Viola. Orsino recognized Antonio as an enemy, but Viola insisted that he helped her. Antonio told Orsino that he had been shipwrecked 3 months ago. "I saved this young man beside you and have cared for him since then," he said. "I put myself in danger for him, but now he refuses to give me the money I gave him just half an hour ago." "You are mad," said Orsino. "He has been serving me for 3 months." Before they could say anything else, Olivia arrived. Everybody became confused. Olivia was angry with Viola because she saw her with Orsino and thought she was ignoring the secret marriage. Orsino thought Olivia was talking to him, and he got angry with her. He told her that he knew she loved his servant, and since she would not accept his love, he would take the servant away from her too. Viola declared that she loved Orsino and was happy to go with him. Olivia became extremely angry. "Stay with me, husband," she demanded. "Husband?" said Orsino. "Are you her husband?" he asked Viola. Viola denied it. Olivia called the priest, and he confirmed it. Orsino became angry with Viola, thinking that she, as Cesario, had stolen Olivia from him. "Go with Olivia," he shouted at Viola, "but make sure that we never meet again." Sir Andrew Toothache arrived and complained that Cesario had attacked him and Sir Toby, who now needed a doctor. Viola denied it. But then Sir Toby came and repeated the complaint. Olivia sent her uncle and Sir Andrew away. Then Sebastian arrived and apologized to Olivia for hurting her uncle. He saw Antonio. "Where have you been?" he asked. "I've been looking for you." Then he saw Viola. "Who are you?" he asked. "Are you another me? I have no brothers." "But you must be family. You look just like me." "I had a brother called Sebastian," she said, "but he drowned in the shipwreck." "Are you his ghost?" "If you were a girl," said Sebastian, "I would think you were my sister Viola." Viola told him that she was wearing men's clothes, but that she was in fact a woman. Everyone was very surprised, and everyone was happy. Olivia and Sebastian were happy because they were married, although by mistake. Orsino was happy because he no longer loved Olivia, but loved Viola and asked her to marry him. Viola was happy because she had found her brother and was going to marry Orsino. Orsino and Olivia became friends. Just then the jester arrived with a letter from Malvolio, which he read to Olivia. She asked him to bring Malvolio to her. When he arrived, he insisted that he was not mad, but was doing what the letter from Olivia told him to do. He showed her the letter that Maria had written, and demanded to know why Olivia had written it. Olivia told him that she did not write it. "It is Maria's writing," she said. A servant told them that Maria wrote it because Sir Toby asked her to do it, and that Sir Toby was going to marry her. Malvolio realized that he had been tricked, and vowed to take revenge on them all. He did not think that the joke was funny. Everyone else, however, was happy. Much Ado About Nothing. Chapter 1. Pedro and his friends come to Messina. There was once a prince called Don Pedro of Aragon, who fought a war against his enemies and won the victory. Very few of his men were killed, and he was very pleased. He decided to go to Messina, in Italy, for a holiday, and invited some of his best soldiers to come with him. He wrote a letter to Leonato, the governor of Messina, to tell him that he was coming. Leonato was happy to hear the news, and asked the messenger who was in the group. The messenger told him about Claudio, a young man who fought very well in the wars. "He looks like a lamb but fights like a lion," said the messenger. "His uncle lives here in Messina, and was very proud of his nephew when he heard the news." Leonato's niece, Beatrice, asked whether another of Don Pedro's friends, Benedict, was with the group, and the messenger told her that he was. Beatrice liked making fun of Benedict, and told the messenger that she didn't think Benedict would have killed many people in the war. The messenger told her that he had done very well in the war, and Leonato told her to stop making fun of or teasing him. He explained to the messenger that there was a kind of happy war going on between Beatrice and Benedict. "I wonder who his companion is now," said Beatrice. "He changes his companions as often as he changes his hat. He is often with Claudio," said the messenger. "Ah, poor Claudio," exclaimed Beatrice. "He has caught a disease called Benedict. He will not get rid of that disease easily." A few hours later, Don Pedro arrived in Messina. Claudio and Benedict were with him, as well as Don Pedro's brother, Don John. Don John was once an enemy of Don Pedro, and they used to fight. But Don Pedro won, and now they were friends again. However, Don John was very jealous of Claudio, who had become Don Pedro's favorite. Leonato was very happy to see them, and made them promise to stay for at least a month. As soon as they saw each other, Beatrice and Benedict began to tease each other. "I don't know why you talk," said Beatrice. "Nobody listens to you." "That's good," replied Benedict. "If they listened to me talk, they might love me. Then they would be disappointed, for I love no one." "That's a good thing for all women," said Beatrice. "It makes me happy because I don't want any man to tell me he loves me. If you don't change your mind," said Benedict, "it will save an unlucky man from having a scratched face. If a man's face was scratched, it would still not be as bad as yours," said Beatrice. "I wish my horse had the speed of your tongue," exclaimed Benedict. Claudio listened to this silly conversation for a while, but then he noticed Leonato's daughter, Hero. He thought she was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen and fell in love with her. As soon as the others left, he talked to Benedict about her. Benedict told him that he would be a fool to marry and give up his freedom. Claudio insisted that Hero was very beautiful, but Benedict replied that Hero's cousin Beatrice was more beautiful, and she would be a much better wife than Hero, if she were not so proud. Benedict told Don Pedro that Claudio loved Hero and wanted to marry her. Don Pedro was pleased to hear this because he liked Hero and thought she would be a good wife for Claudio. In fact, he was so pleased that he offered to help Claudio. He told him that there was going to be a big party that night, and he would go there wearing a mask and pretend to be Claudio. Then he would talk to Hero and tell her that Claudio loved her. After that, he would go and talk to her father, Leonato, and the marriage would be arranged. Claudio was very grateful to Don Pedro for his promise to help. Don Pedro and Claudio did not know that Don John's servant, a man called Baracchio, heard everything they said. Don John had a very good friend whose name was Conrad. Conrad saw Don John looking very sad and tried to cheer him up. Unfortunately, Don John was still annoyed that he had lost the fight with his brother, Don Pedro. He was only pretending to be friendly with him. As Don John and Conrad were talking, Baracchio came up and told them the news that Claudio wanted to marry Hero, and that Don Pedro would help him. Don John was very interested in this news. He was still jealous of Claudio, and thought that he might be able to ruin his happiness. Conrad and Baracchio promised to help him make a plan. Chapter 2. A plot to make love and a plan to break love. That evening at the party, Leonato asked about Don John. No one had seen him at the party. Beatrice said he was a sad, unfriendly man. If there was a man who was half Benedict, who talks too much, and half Don John, who does not talk enough, he might be a pleasant man, she said. He could marry any woman in the world. You will never get a husband if you speak like that, said Leonato. I do not want a husband, she replied. Still, I hope to see you married one day, said Leonato. No, uncle, I will never marry, was Beatrice's reply. No man is good enough for me. She turned to Hero and warned her that only fools married. Hero did not answer. Leonato thought that Claudio was in love with his daughter Hero, and he prepared Hero for the proposal. He told her that he gave his permission. Everybody at the party was wearing masks and pretending to be somebody else while they danced. They tried to guess who other people were. Beatrice danced with Benedict, and he pretended to be someone else. He said he didn't know Benedict, and Beatrice told him what a bad person Benedict was. She called him Don Pedro's foolish jester. Don Pedro approached Hero and asked her to dance with him, and she agreed. While they were dancing, Don John arrived at the party. He saw Claudio and approached him. You are Benedict, aren't you? He asked. Yes, I am, lied Claudio. I wish you would help my brother Don Pedro. Don John said, I know he loves Hero, but she is below his rank, and he should not marry her. Can you convince him not to do it? Claudio knew that Don Pedro was acting in his place, but he was still worried. How do you know he loves her? Asked Claudio. I heard him say it, answered Don John. I heard it too, said Baracchio, who was with Don John. He said that he would marry her tonight. Claudio was devastated. Don Pedro wants to marry her himself. You can't trust friends when it comes to love, he thought. Meanwhile, Benedict heard Hero tell Don Pedro that she agreed to marry. He didn't realize that Don Pedro was pretending to be Claudio. He told Claudio that Hero had been stolen from him by Don Pedro. Claudio was extremely disappointed and left the party. Don Pedro came looking for Claudio to tell him the good news that Hero agreed to marry him, but couldn't find him. He asked Benedict if he had seen him, and told Benedict the good news. Then he told Benedict that someone was dancing with Beatrice. This man told Beatrice that Benedict was very unkind to her. Benedict was already angry with Beatrice, but now he became even angrier. He said some terrible things about her, and refused to speak to her the next time he saw her. Don Pedro found Claudio and told him the good news. Hero would marry Claudio. Claudio was extremely pleased to hear this, and wanted to marry her the next day. But Leonato asked for 1 week to prepare for the wedding. Don John's first plan to ruin Claudio's wedding had not worked, but he would try again later and hope for more success. Everyone gets a husband except me, said Beatrice. "We will find you a husband," said Don Pedro, and offered to marry her himself. Beatrice said she would not marry him and laughed. After she had gone, Don Pedro suggested that she would be an excellent wife for Benedict. But Leonato thought that they would drive each other mad in a very short time. Don Pedro decided that he would make Benedict and Beatrice love each other, so that there would be a double wedding in a week's time. "It will be difficult," he said, "but I think I can do it if you all help me." Leonato, Claudio, and Hero all agreed to help. When Don John heard that his plot to ruin Claudio's happiness had failed, he went to Barocchio. Barocchio told him that he could still ruin the wedding plans. "I am very friendly with Hero's maid," said Barocchio. "Her name is Margaret, and I will use her to ruin Claudio's plans." Barocchio told Don John his plan. Don John was very pleased with the plan and promised him a lot of money if it succeeded. Chapter 3. The Plot to Make Love. Benedict sat in the garden thinking about love. He thought it was a very strange thing, which had changed his friend Claudio so much that he almost couldn't recognize him anymore. He wondered whether love could ever change him like that. He didn't think so. He thought that the only woman he could love would be beautiful, rich, and wise. She would be good at music and a clever speaker. If she was not perfect, he would rather remain single all his life. While he was thinking about these things, he saw Don Pedro and Claudio approaching and hid behind a tree. However, Don Pedro saw him hide. He called Leonato to come to him and asked him about Beatrice. He spoke very loudly. "Did you say that Beatrice loved Benedict?" he asked. "Yes," replied Leonato. "I thought that she would never love a man, but she loves Benedict. It's very surprising." Benedict, hiding behind the tree, was also surprised. He could not believe it, and thought that it might be a trick. Then he thought that Leonato would never play such a trick. "Has she told Benedict of her love?" asked Don Pedro. "No," replied Leonato. "She says that she cannot." "That's right," added Claudio. "Your daughter Hero says that she cannot write to him and tell him she loves him, because she has always treated him with such scorn. She is sure that Benedict will scorn her. She has started to write letters to him many times," said Leonato. "But she never finishes them. She always tears them up. Sometimes she sits on the floor of her room and cries, and calls him her sweet Benedict. It would be good if somebody told Benedict this," said Don Pedro. "Why?" asked Claudio. "He would only laugh and treat her cruelly. He does not love her. It's a great pity," said Don Pedro. "She is very beautiful, and very wise," added Claudio. "Yes," agreed Don Pedro, "except in her love for Benedict. I feel sorry for her," said Leonato. "I wish she would love me," said Don Pedro. "Shall we tell Benedict that she loves him?" "No," said Claudio. "He is too cruel to her. Though he is a good man, she will stop loving him one day." "I don't think so," said Leonato. "She loves him too much." The three men walked on, very pleased with their trick. They felt sure that their conversation would change Benedict's mind about Beatrice. They planned for Beatrice to hear a similar conversation about Benedict. Benedict was fooled by the trick. He was surprised that Beatrice loved him, and began to wonder if he could love Beatrice. Hero carried out the second part of the love plan. She told her maid Margaret to find Beatrice. "Tell her that you heard me talking to my friend Ursula in the garden, and that we were talking about her and Benedict," she said. "Tell her that she should come and listen." Margaret did as she was told, and Beatrice came to hide in the garden. Hero told Ursula what to say. As Hero and Ursula approached the place where Beatrice was hiding, they began their conversation. "She is too proud," said Hero. "Are you sure that Benedict loves her?" asked Ursula. "Don Pedro and Claudio told me," said Hero. "Did they ask you to tell her?" asked Ursula. "Yes," replied Hero, "but I persuaded them it was not a good idea." "Why?" asked Ursula. "Doesn't Benedict deserve someone to love him?" "Yes, of course," exclaimed Hero. "He is a good man, but Beatrice will never love him. She loves only herself. I would like to tell her, but I do not dare. She will make fun of me and Benedict. I will go to Benedict and tell him some lies about Beatrice to stop him from loving her. That would not be fair to your cousin, protested Ursula. Benedict is the best man in the whole country, and you will stop him from loving her. I don't know what else to do, said Hero, as she and Ursula walked away. Beatrice was fooled by their trick. She was surprised that Benedict loved her, and began to wonder if she could love Benedict. A little later that day, Don Pedro, Leonato, and Claudio saw Benedict. He was looking sad, and they teased him, suggesting that he may be in love. He told them he had a toothache. They knew that wasn't true, of course, and teased him some more. He's brushed his hair. He's trimmed his beard. He's washed his face. He looks miserable. That proves it. He's in love. Benedict was not amused and asked to speak to Leonato in private. As soon as Benedict and Leonato had gone, Don Pedro exclaimed, "He's going to talk to him about marrying Beatrice already." Chapter 4. The Plan to Break Love. That night, Don John put his plan into action. He came to Don Pedro and Claudio. "You know that I care for you," he told them, "though sometimes you may think that I do not. But here is the proof that I do. Come with me, and I will help you avoid a disaster. Your wonderful hero, whom you would marry tomorrow, is not faithful." "If this is true," said Claudio, "I will shame her tomorrow at the wedding." "And I will help you," added Don Pedro. They followed Don John, who took them to a place where they could see Hero's window. Below it sat Barocchio. A woman was at the window listening to Barocchio talk about his love for her and laughing with him. The woman was Margaret, Hero's maid. But it was dark, and Don Pedro and Claudio thought it was Hero, because it was her window, and she was wearing some of Hero's clothes. They could hear what Barocchio said to the woman. Claudio was extremely angry and vowed that he would take revenge on Hero. He decided that he would go to the wedding the next day, but he would refuse to marry her. Don Pedro was surprised and angry at Hero too, and agreed with Claudio's plan. Don John was very pleased that his plan worked and gave Barocchio the money that he promised. Barocchio went to the hotel to spend some of the money and drank some wine. He met Don John's servant Conrad and boasted to him about the money he got from Don John. He told him about the plan and how angry Claudio and Don Pedro were to think that Hero was unfaithful, and what they were going to do at the wedding. Barocchio had drunk too much wine and was talking very loudly to Conrad. Some police officers heard him. They arrested him, as well as Conrad, and put them both in jail. The next day was the day of the wedding. Hero was very excited. She didn't know anything about what had happened the previous evening. She prepared her wedding dress and talked to her maid and Beatrice about the wedding. They were all very happy and laughed at the jokes they told each other. Then Ursula came to tell them that it was almost time to go. The captain of police came to Leonato to tell them that the police officers had arrested 2 men and put them in jail. They thought Leonato, who was the judge, should examine them because the story was important for him. However, Leonato was very busy and in a hurry because of the wedding. He told them to examine the 2 men themselves, and then he was called away to the wedding. The wedding was conducted by Friar Francis. "Do you come here to marry this lady?" he asked Claudio. "No," replied Claudio. Everyone was surprised by this answer. Claudio was very angry. He asked Hero if she knew any reason why he should not marry her, but she said she didn't. Then he told Leonato that he didn't want to marry his terrible daughter. He called her a rotten orange. He said she was guilty of being unfaithful. She seemed to be a good woman. She talked like a good woman. She acted like a good woman. But she was not a good woman. She was a bad, unfaithful, lying woman. Claudio cried as he said these things. Leonato was very upset. He asked Don Pedro why he didn't stop Claudio from saying such terrible things, but Don Pedro only agreed with Claudio. Leonato asked whether this was a dream. Don John told him that it was not a dream, it was real. Claudio insisted that Hero answer his question. "Whom did you speak to from your window last night?" he demanded. "I didn't speak to anyone from my window last night." She replied. Don Pedro called her a liar. "I was there, I heard you myself. Don John and Claudio saw you and heard you too. You were talking and laughing with a man about your love for each other. You cannot deny it. We saw it with our own eyes." Don John and Claudio confirmed what Don Pedro said. Hero fainted. The three men left her on the floor of the church and walked out. Beatrice rushed to Hero. She thought that she was dead. Leonato was devastated. He was so upset that he hoped Hero was dead. "It would be better for her to be dead than to live with this shame," he said. Benedict was so surprised he did not know what to say, which was very unusual for him. Friar Francis, however, said he did not believe it, and that there was some mistake. He knew Hero was a good woman, and would not be unfaithful. "But it must be true," cried Leonato. "Claudio loved her so much that he cried as he accused her. Why would he lie about it?" Hero recovered, and they asked her what the accusation meant, but she could only tell them that she never acted unfaithfully. Benedict said that Claudio and Don Pedro were good men, but that he was not sure about Don John. He wondered if he was somehow tricking the other two. Leonato declared that if Claudio's story was false, he would take revenge on the people responsible. He was very angry. Friar Francis suggested a plan. "The three men have left her for dead in the church. If we let them believe that she is really dead, then Claudio will begin to think differently about her because he will miss her and be sorry that he accused her of being unfaithful. He will mourn her and perhaps love her again. If he does not, then you can send Hero away to some quiet place where no one will see her again." Benedict agreed with this plan and promised not to tell Claudio and Don Pedro, although he was their friend. Leonato agreed with it too, and they all left the church. Benedict saw Beatrice alone. She was crying. She told Benedict that she believed Hero was innocent, and that Claudio had wronged her. Benedict tried to comfort Beatrice and told her that he loved her. She demanded that Benedict should prove his love by killing Claudio. At first, Benedict refused, but in the end he agreed to challenge him to a duel. Chapter 5. A Victory for Love. The next day, the chief of police examined Baracchio and Conrad. The police officer gave his evidence and told what he heard them say. The chief told Baracchio and Conrad that they could not deny the story. "This morning, Don John secretly left the town. Yesterday, Hero was accused just as you said, and she died." He ordered the police officer to take them to Leonato and tell him the story. Leonato, of course, was full of grief and sadness. He loved his only child, Hero, very much. He could not be comforted. He said that the only person who could comfort him was a man who suffered as badly as he did, but no such man could live. He was also extremely angry with Don Pedro, Don John, and Claudio. His brother Antonio told him that he should not suffer all alone, but make them suffer too. When they found Don Pedro and Claudio, Leonato challenged Claudio to a duel. Claudio would not fight him because he was old, and it would not be a fair fight. Leonato told them that they killed his beautiful daughter with their false accusations. Don Pedro replied that they were sorry that Hero died, but it was the truth that killed her. Leonato and Antonio tried to argue with Don Pedro, but he said he would not listen to them, and the two old brothers left. Don Pedro and Claudio were looking for Benedict, and they soon found him. They told him about their quarrel with Leonato and Antonio, and then asked Benedict to cheer them up with some jokes because they were very sad. Benedict, however, challenged Claudio to a duel. At first, Claudio thought it was a joke, but then he realized it was real. Benedict told them that Don John had secretly left Messina, and that they had killed Hero with their accusations. They made arrangements for the duel, and Benedict left them. Don Pedro was surprised to hear that his brother Don John had left Messina. Then they saw the police officers with Baracchio and Conrad. "Look, here are two of my brother's men," said Don Pedro. "One of them is Baracchio. I wonder why police officers arrested them." Claudio told him he should ask the police officers, so he did. The police officer, however, was not very clever and could not explain it to them, so they asked Baracchio himself. Baracchio told them about the night he sat at the window and talked to Margaret through the window, while Margaret pretended to be Hero. He wanted to die because his evil actions had killed Hero, and he was very sorry. Don Pedro and Claudio were surprised. They felt like a sword had cut their bodies. They asked Borachio whether Don John asked him to do this, and he told them that he did and that he gave him money for it. "And now he has run away from Messina," exclaimed Don Pedro. "He is truly a bad man." The chief of police went to Leonato and told him Borachio's story. And Leonato and Antonio went out to see Borachio. They found Don Pedro and Claudio talking to him. "Are you the man who killed my innocent daughter?" he asked Borachio. Borachio was very sorry. "Yes, it was my fault," answered Borachio. "I alone am guilty." "That is not true," said Leonato. "Here are two men who also played their part." He turned to Don Pedro and Claudio. "Thank you for my daughter's death," he said. "You were very brave. You can punish me however you like," said Claudio. "But the only wrong I did was to make a mistake." Don Pedro said the same. "I can't ask you to make my daughter alive again," Leonato said, "because that is impossible. I want you to go to everyone in Messina and tell them that Hero is innocent. Tell them that she was a good and faithful woman. You will write it on her tomb. Come to my house tomorrow, Claudio. My brother has a daughter, very like Hero, and you will marry her. Be to her what you should have been to my daughter." Claudio was extremely grateful for his kindness and agreed to marry his brother's daughter, although he had never seen her and didn't even know her name. Benedict, meanwhile, went back to Beatrice to tell her that he challenged Claudio to a duel. He tried to write some poetry to tell her of his love, but it was too difficult, and he gave up. When he found Beatrice, he told her again that he loved her, but she would not listen to him. "Did you fight Claudio?" she asked. He told her that he challenged Claudio to a duel. She said that these were only words, and that she would not believe in his love until he proved it with more than speech. As they were talking, Ursula rushed in with the news that Hero had been proven innocent, that Don Pedro and Claudio had been tricked, and that Don John was the cause of it all, and that he had run away from Messina. Claudio and Don Pedro did as they promised. They told everyone that Hero was innocent. They went to her grave and wrote it on her tomb, and sang to her there. They promised to return every year to sing about her innocence. Then they went to Leonato's palace. Everyone at Leonato's palace was happy. Friar Francis was there. "Didn't I tell you she was innocent?" he kept saying. Leonato agreed and said that Don Pedro and Claudio were innocent too, because Don John tricked them. Benedict was pleased because he didn't have to fight a duel with Claudio. Leonato ordered all the women to leave and stay in another room until he called them. He told them that they had to wear masks when they returned. "Don Pedro and Claudio will be here soon," he said. Benedict spoke to Friar Francis and asked him to marry him to Beatrice. Leonato and Antonio, her two uncles, gave their permission. When Don Pedro and Claudio arrived, everyone was very friendly. How different from how things were a short time earlier. "Will you still marry my niece?" asked Leonato. "I will marry her, even if she is ugly," replied Claudio. Antonio went to call the women, and they returned with him. They were all wearing masks. "Which one must I marry?" asked Claudio. Leonato told him which one it was, and Claudio asked her to remove her mask. Leonato would not let her, however. He said that Claudio must first take her hand and promise to marry her. Claudio took her hand and promised to marry her. Hero took off her mask. "Another Hero!" exclaimed Claudio. "It is Hero who was dead," exclaimed Don Pedro. "She was only dead when people believed bad things about her," said Leonato. Everyone was extremely happy that Hero was not dead. Claudio was the happiest because now he would still marry her. Benedict asked Beatrice if she loved him. "No," she replied. "That's strange," he said. "Don Pedro, Claudio, and your uncle Leonato all believe that you did." Beatrice asked Benedict if he loved her. "No," he replied. "That's strange," she said. "Margaret, Ursula, and my cousin Hero all believe that you did." Benedict and Beatrice looked at each other. "Let's marry anyway," said Benedict. "All right," agreed Beatrice. They all went to the church together for the double wedding. On the way, a messenger came to tell them that some soldiers had caught Don John and were bringing him back to Messina. "We'll worry about that tomorrow," said Benedict. The Taming of the Shrew. Chapter 1. A Poor Man Thinks He is Rich. Every poor man wants to be rich, and every husband wants a wonderful wife. There was once a very poor man who lived in the town of Padua. Like most poor men, he spent more money than he had, and he was always in debt. He owed money to the hotel, and when he broke some glasses, he could not pay for them. He was thrown out of the hotel by the owner. He was drunk and abused the owner, and then he fell asleep on the doorstep of a rich man's house. The poor man's name was Christopher Sly, and the rich man was a lord. The lord came home from hunting with some of his friends and found Christopher Sly sleeping on his doorstep. He decided to play a trick on the poor man. He told his servants to carry the sleeping man into the house and put him in the lord's bed. He told them to pretend that the poor man was the lord of the house, and that when he woke up, to do whatever he ordered. He told a young servant, called Bartholomew, to dress himself as a woman, and pretended to be the lord's wife. Everyone thought that this would be very amusing, and did what the real lord asked. A few hours later, Sly woke up. He didn't know where he was. He was in a beautiful bed in a large room. He looked around and called out for some beer. A servant came in and addressed him very politely. "Would my lord like some white wine?" he asked. Another servant offered him fruit. A third servant asked him which clothes he would like to wear. "Don't call me lord," said Sly. "My name is Christopher Sly. I have never drunk wine in my life. I don't eat fruit, and you don't need to ask me what clothes I want to wear. I have no more shirts than backs, no more stockings than legs, and no more shoes than feet, and sometimes fewer." The real lord and his servants convinced Sly that he was really a lord. "You slept for 15 years, they told him, "and in that time you dreamed you were a poor man and acted like a poor man. It is a kind of madness. But now you are awake. We are very happy that you are better. You should stop acting like a poor man. You are a lord, and you are married to a beautiful lady who has been sad for these 15 years. Sly was very surprised to discover that he was really a lord, and that he was married to a beautiful lady. He called for his wife and asked again for some beer. When his wife, Bartholomew, arrived, she was very happy to see him and told him that he should rest, or he might become mad again. One of the servants came to the lord and told him that there was a storyteller at the door. "Would my lord like to listen to a story?" he asked. "It would give you a good rest and help make you better," suggested Bartholomew. Christopher Sly didn't know how to act like a lord, and decided that he should do what his wife suggested. "Let's hear the story," he said. Chapter 2. Two Very Different Sisters. The storyteller came in, and this is the story he told. In Padua, there was a rich old man who had two daughters. The elder was called Catherine, and the younger was called Bianca. Their father's name was Baptista. Bianca was very beautiful and very quiet. She was a very obedient daughter and always did whatever her father told her to do. Her older sister Catherine, however, was more independent and said what she thought. She was not always obedient to her father, and people thought that she was rude and had a sharp tongue. All the young men and even some of the older men in Padua wanted to marry Bianca. Nobody wanted to marry Catherine. Two men asked Baptista if they could marry Bianca. One of them was Gremio. He was a foolish old man. The other was Hortensio, who was younger but had a weak character. Bianca's father, Baptista, would not allow anyone to marry Bianca. He said that her older sister should marry first. Only after she was married could anyone marry Bianca. He told Bianca that she should stay at home and study and not think about men until Catherine was married. He said he would hire a teacher to teach his daughters, but he would not allow any suitors to visit Bianca. Bianca immediately agreed because she was so obedient. The two men who wanted to marry her, however, argued with her father. "Why are you locking her up? Bianca will be very sad. It is not fair to make her suffer because her older sister has a sharp tongue," they said. But nothing they said could change Baptista's mind. "The elder daughter must marry first," he insisted. He told Bianca to go to the house and Catherine to stay with the two men. He hoped that one of them would like her and agree to marry her instead of Bianca. However, Catherine would not stay and talk to them. "If Bianca doesn't have to receive them when they visit, neither do I," she said. "No one tells me what to do." When she left, Gremio and Hortensio decided that they would try to find a husband for Catherine. They both thought it would be very difficult, but if they did not find one, neither of them would ever marry Bianca. A young man called Lucentio came to Padua to study. He was eager to learn more about the world and to become wise. His rich father gave him enough money to do whatever he wanted. His servant, Tranio, reminded him that he should not only study, but also enjoy himself, and Lucentio agreed. Lucentio and Tranio heard about Baptista and his 2 daughters. As they were coming into Padua, they saw the 2 girls and their father, and Lucentio immediately fell in love with Bianca, as everyone did. He decided that he wanted to marry her, and would go to Baptista's house and offer to be a teacher for the 2 girls. Tranio reminded him that there were teachers in Padua who were expecting him to arrive and go to their classes. "But she is so beautiful and so obedient," said Lucentio. "Her father is cruel to lock her up. I must marry her. If I could be her teacher, I am sure that I would make her love me." Then he made a plan. He told Tranio to change clothes with him and go in his place to the teachers in Padua. "You will pretend to be me," he said. "Nobody has seen us yet, and nobody will know that you are Tranio instead of Lucentio." Lucentio had another servant with him whose name was Biondello. He saw that Lucentio and Tranio changed their clothes. He didn't understand it, and Lucentio didn't want to tell him about Bianca. Lucentio said that he killed a man in a fight, and was worried that someone had seen him. So Tranio was wearing his clothes to help him save his life. He told Biondello to behave like Tranio's servant and call him Lucentio. Chapter 3. The Men Make Their Marriage Plans. Hortensio, the younger of the 2 men, who were courting Bianca, had a friend called Petruchio, who lived in Verona. Petruchio had some money because his father died, and he was traveling around looking for a wife. "I can introduce you to a good wife," laughed Hortensio. "She will be very rich one day, when her father dies, but she has a sharp tongue and she is not obedient at all." "Will you really introduce me to her?" asked Petruchio. "No, not really," answered Hortensio. "I was joking. You are my friend. I do not want you to have a bad marriage. You would be very unhappy with her. She is a disaster." "Wait," said Petruchio. "Don't be so sure. If she is rich enough, I don't care how bad or old or ugly or sick she is. I don't care if she has a sharp tongue. I will marry her. I am not looking for love." "Well, if you are serious," said Hortensio, "I can make sure that you meet her. Her name is Catherine, and she is the daughter of Baptista Minola. She is young and beautiful enough, but she speaks her mind and will not obey any man. She is famous for her scolding tongue. I would not marry her for all the money in the world. I know her father," said Petruchio, "but I do not know her. Tell me where she lives, and I will go there immediately to meet her." Hortensio said that he would go with Petruchio and told him about his love for Catherine's sister Bianca and Baptista's decision that no one would marry her until her elder sister was married. Hortensio decided that he would disguise himself as a music teacher and offer to teach music to the 2 sisters and so try to win Bianca's love. He said his name was Licio. Gremio, the foolish old man who also wanted to marry Bianca, promised Baptista that he would find a good teacher for her. He found Lucentio, who was now disguised as a teacher, and called himself Cambio. Gremio's plan was to pay Lucentio to tell Bianca that Gremio would be a very good husband. He didn't know that Lucentio also loved Bianca and wanted to marry her. Lucentio, of course, agreed to take his money, but his plan was to win Bianca for himself, not for Gremio. As Gremio and Lucentio were going to Baptista's house, they met Hortensio and Petruchio. Hortensio told Gremio that Petruchio was willing to marry Catherine. Gremio didn't believe him. "Did you tell him all her faults?" asked Gremio. "I know that she has a sharp tongue and is not obedient to any man," said Petruchio. "But that does not worry me. I have been in wars. I have heard lions roar. I have been in storms at sea. Will I be afraid of a woman's tongue? You see, said Hortensio. He says he will marry her. I promised that we would help to pay for any presents he buys for her. You'll help, won't you? Only if he marries her, said Gremio. And I don't think this will happen. She is like a wild cat. While they were speaking, Tranio arrived, dressed as Lucentio, and pretending to be Lucentio. He also said that he wanted to marry Bianca. The real Lucentio was very pleased with his servant because he thought that it would help his disguise. Hortensio and Gremio told Tranio that he would also have to help pay Petruchio for the presents he bought Catherine, and he agreed. Bianca, who had to study and not think about marrying until her elder sister married, now had all these men who wanted to marry her. Hortensio, who was disguised as a music teacher named Liccio. Gremio, who sent Lucentio to talk to her on his behalf. Lucentio, who was disguised as a poetry teacher named Cambaio. He was supposed to help Gremio, but would try to win Bianca for himself. Tranio pretended to be Lucentio, and also tried to make Bianca love him. They all had to wait until Petruchio married Catherine, and they all hoped that his plan would succeed. Bianca had many men who wanted to marry her. Catherine wanted to know which one she liked best. She tied her younger sister up and refused to let her go. Which one will you have? She asked. Bianca said she had never seen any man that she wanted to marry. Catherine accused her of lying. Is it Hortensio? She asked. Or Gremio? Or someone else? Bianca repeated her answer, but this made Catherine angry, and she hit her sister. I will not let you go until you tell me, she shouted. Baptista saw his daughters fighting and was angry with Catherine. Bianca has never said anything bad to you, he said. Why did you tie her up and hit her? Untie her and let her go. Her silence makes me angry, answered Catherine. You love her more than you love me, and I will take revenge. All the men arrived at Baptista's house. Petruchio asked to see his wonderful and obedient daughter Catherine and said that he had brought a music teacher to help her learn music. This, of course, was Hortensio, disguised as Lucio, who wanted to see Bianca. Baptista told Petruchio that he did have a daughter Catherine, but she was not wonderful and not obedient, and he did not think Petruchio would like her. Then Gremio introduced Lucentio as Cambio, a poet who would teach Bianca poetry. Baptista was very thankful and welcomed Lucentio to the house. Baptista asked Tranio who he was and why he was visiting him. Tranio said he was Lucentio and wanted to meet his daughter Bianca and have the same chance to marry her as Gremio and Hortensio. Baptista talked to him about his father and welcomed him. Baptista called a servant and told him to take Hortensio and Lucentio to his daughters and tell them that these men were their new teachers. Then he warned Petruchio that it would not be easy to win Catherine's love because she was so proud and independent. Petruchio told him that he need not worry. Is she a fire? He said. I am a strong wind. A small fire will get bigger with a gentle wind, but a strong wind will put it out. I hope you are ready for some unhappy words, said Baptista. Chapter 4. A Very Strange Wedding. Hortensio tried to teach Catherine to play the guitar, but she quickly became angry with him and broke the guitar on his head. When Petruchio heard about this, he decided that she was a lively girl, and he loved her more than ever. Baptista told Hortensio that it might be better to try and teach Bianca, who was much gentler and would not argue with him. When Petruchio finally met Catherine, he told her how wonderful she was, but Catherine became angry again and hit him. He told her he would hit her if she did that again, and then added that people had told him she was rude and disobedient, but he thought she was gentle and kind. The whole world, he said, was wrong about her, and he wanted to marry her. Her father had given permission. Catherine did not believe him. Baptista came in while they were talking and asked Petruchio how he was getting on with his daughter. Very well, said Petruchio. Catherine did not agree. You call yourself my father, but you give this madman permission to marry me? She shouted. You are all wrong about Catherine, said Petruchio. You say that she is rude and bad-tempered, but she is only like that in public. When we are alone, she is gentle and kind. In fact, we like each other so much that the wedding will be on Sunday." They were all amazed. Catherine was more surprised than anyone. Petruchio went back to Verona. He said that he had to make arrangements for the wedding. Baptista met with Gremio and Tranio, who was still pretending to be Lucentio, to talk about who would marry Bianca. "He is too old," said Tranio, pointing to Gremio. "He is too young," said Gremio, pointing to Tranio. Baptista told them that age did not matter. He would give his daughter to the richest man. Gremio told Baptista how rich he was, but Tranio told him he was 4 times as rich. Baptista agreed that Tranio, still pretending to be Lucentio, would marry Bianca. He needed to talk to Tranio's father, though, to make sure that Tranio was not lying and that all the land and money would be Bianca's even if Tranio died before his father. Tranio went to the real Lucentio and told him that he had to find a man to play the part of his father, Vincentio. This man would have to assure Baptista that he really did have all this money, and that he would leave it to his new daughter-in-law if his son died before him. Lucentio, disguised as Cambio, was trying to teach Bianca poetry, and Hortensio, disguised as Licchio, was trying to teach her music, and they argued about who should teach the first lesson. Bianca told them to stop arguing. She would listen to poetry from Lucentio while Hortensio tuned his guitar. They both made poetry and music that told Bianca that they loved her. Each of them tried to get time alone with Bianca, but the other would not allow it. After a while, it became clear that Bianca was kinder to Lucentio than to Hortensio. It was the day of Catherine's wedding, but no one had seen or heard of Petruchio since the day of his first visit. Baptista was very worried. Catherine was very angry and cried. She thought Petruchio was a mad fool who went around the country proposing marriages but never marrying. Suddenly, a messenger arrived to tell them that Petruchio was coming. When he arrived, he was very badly dressed in old, torn clothes. Baptista was annoyed and told him to get some better clothes for the wedding. Tranio offered him some of his clothes, but Petruchio refused them. He said that Catherine was marrying him and not his clothes. Being late and wearing old clothes were only the beginning of the strange things that Petruchio did at the wedding. When the priest asked him if he took this woman to be his wife, he swore so loudly that everybody was surprised, and the priest dropped his book on the floor. As he picked it up, Petruchio hit him and pushed him down to the ground. "Now get up and be more careful," he shouted. The priest continued nervously to the end of the wedding. Then Petruchio took some wine and drank it and threw the last drops into the priest's face. As the priest was drying his face, Petruchio took the bride around the neck and kissed her so loudly that everyone in the church could hear it. It was a mad wedding. Then he praised his new wife and said they had to leave immediately for Verona. Baptista asked him to stay for dinner. He refused. Tranio asked him to stay for dinner. He refused. Gremio asked him to stay for dinner. He refused. Catherine asked him to stay for dinner. He said he was happy that she asked him, but he still refused. Catherine told him that he could go by himself. She would not go with him until she was ready. She ordered all the people to go to the dining hall for dinner. Petruchio told them to obey her. "Have a good party," he said. "Enjoy your dinner, but Catherine will come with me. She is my wife and must obey." He dragged her to his horses, and they rode away. The people went in to dinner without them, very surprised at the strange wedding. Chapter 5. A New Husband and a New Father. On the way to Verona, there was an accident with the horses. Catherine's horse fell, and she was under it in the mud. Petruchio left her under the horse and attacked his servant for allowing the horse to fall. He knocked the servant to the ground and continued to hit him. Catherine got away from her horse and tried to pull Petruchio off the servant. He swore and she prayed, and the horses ran away. They caught the horses, and Petruchio sent the servant ahead to get things ready at the house. When Petruchio and Catherine arrived at the house, the servants were still busy getting it ready. Petruchio was angry. He swore at them. He sang songs to amuse Catherine. He swore at some more servants. He kicked one of them. He sang some more songs. He called for dinner to be served. He told Catherine to sit down. A servant spilled some water, and Petruchio scolded him. Catherine asked him to be patient. It was an accident, she said, but it only made him angrier at the servant. When dinner was served, he scolded his servants for burning the meat and told them to take it away. Catherine asked him again to be patient. The meat looked all right, she said. No, he insisted. It was bad and would make us both sick. It's better not to eat today. We shall eat tomorrow. He took her to the bedroom and scolded her. The servants were surprised at his behavior. That night Petruchio made sure that Catherine did not sleep. He complained about the bed and threw off the sheets. Then he threw off the pillows. It is not good enough for you, he told her. As soon as she began to fall asleep, he did it again. The next day, he would not let her eat. He sent the food away. It is not good enough for you, he told her. Back in Padua, Tranio and Hortensio noticed that Bianca seemed to enjoy being with Lucentio more than being with them. Tranio, of course, was happy about this because he was trying to help Lucentio. Hortensio was not so happy because he wanted Bianca for himself. After seeing Bianca and Lucentio talking and laughing together, he decided that he would not try to marry Bianca. She was much too friendly with Lucentio. He told Tranio that he would marry a rich widow instead. She is making a mistake, he said. I have much more money than that teacher Cambio. Of course, he didn't realize that Cambio was the real Lucentio, who was very rich. Hortensio left Padua and went to Verona to stay with his friend Petruchio and his new wife Catherine. Lucentio and Tranio still needed to find an old man who could pretend to be Lucentio's father and assure Baptista that he was a rich man. They couldn't get someone from Padua to play the part in case Baptista recognized him. So, Biondello waited outside the city to see if there were any travelers who were old enough to look like Lucentio's father. He finally found one and brought him to Tranio. Tranio asked him where he came from and then told him that Padua was at war with that place and that his life was in danger. The old man didn't know what to do. He had some business to do there. Tranio told him that he would allow him to stay in his house and pretend to be his father, Vincentio. This would allow him to do his business without danger. In return, the old man would tell Baptista that he was Lucentio's father, and that he was as rich as Tranio promised. Tranio, still pretending to be Lucentio, took the old man to visit Baptista, who believed that he was Lucentio's father. Baptista then agreed to the marriage. The real Lucentio hurried off to the church with Bianca to get married, while Tranio arranged all the details about money with Baptista and the old man at Lucentio's house. Chapter 6. Petruchio and Catherine visit Padua. After a few days in Verona, Catherine was very tired and very hungry because Petruchio would not let her sleep or eat. It's not good enough for you, he always said. She begged for food from the servants, but they did not dare to give her any. Hortensio came and stayed with them, and Petruchio decided that they should visit Baptista in Padua. He ordered some new clothes for Catherine. When the tailor brought the clothes, Catherine said they were beautiful, but Petruchio said they were terrible. He told the tailor to take them away. They are not good enough for my wife, he said. Secretly, however, he told Hortensio to pay the tailor for his work. He told Catherine they would go to her father in their old clothes. It's 7 o'clock now, he said. We should be there in time for lunch. Catherine looked at him. It's 2 o'clock, she said. So we will be in time for dinner. You always want to argue, said Petruchio. We will go when you agree that it is 7 o'clock. Finally, Catherine agreed that it was 7 o'clock, and they departed for Padua. The moon is very bright today, exclaimed Petruchio. The moon? Answered Catherine. It is the sun, not the moon. Do you want to argue again? Asked Petruchio. We will turn the horses around and go home. You are always arguing. We have come a long way already, said Catherine. She wanted to visit her father and sister. Let it be the moon, or sun, or whatever you say it is. I say it is the moon, said Petruchio. I know it is the moon, said Catherine. No, it's not, said Petruchio. It is the sun. Of course, so it is. It is the sun, replied Catherine. She was learning to play Petruchio's game. A little later, they met Vincentio, who was traveling to Padua. This was the real Vincentio, the father of Lucentio. At first, Petruchio made Catherine call Vincentio a young lady, and then he told her she was stupid. Anyone could see it was an old man. Catherine apologized. She told Vincentio that the sun was in her eyes, and she did not see him properly. Petruchio told Vincentio that his son Lucentio would soon marry Bianca, Catherine's sister, and they traveled to Padua together. When they arrived in Padua, they took Vincentio to Lucentio's house. Lucentio, of course, was not there, because he was at the church marrying Bianca. Tranio was there, pretending to be Lucentio, and the old man was there pretending to be Lucentio's father. When Vincentio knocked at the door, the old man opened it and said Lucentio was too busy to talk to anyone. "Tell him his father is here," said Vincentio. "I am his father," said the old man. "I am his father," said Vincentio. Biondello was coming back from the church and saw Vincentio at the door of the house arguing with the old man. He knew that this was going to be a big problem. He was right. Vincentio recognized Biondello, Lucentio's servant, but Biondello pretended he didn't know him. They began to shout at each other. Tranio and Baptista went to the door to see what all the noise was about. Vincentio recognized Tranio, Lucentio's other servant, but Tranio, just like Biondello, pretended he didn't know him. He had to do that because he couldn't let Baptista know that the old man was not really Lucentio's father. When Baptista told Vincentio that Tranio's name was Lucentio, Vincentio thought that Tranio had murdered Lucentio and taken his clothes and his money. Tranio called a police officer and told him to take the foolish old man to jail. Vincentio was very angry. Just then, the real Lucentio arrived, along with Bianca, Tranio, and the old man. And Biondello ran away as fast as they could. Lucentio and Bianca explained everything to their fathers. Vincentio was still angry with Tranio for wanting to put him in jail, and Baptista was annoyed that Lucentio and Bianca had married without waiting for the details about money to be arranged. Hortensio married the widow, and a few days later, they all met for dinner. As they were eating and talking, Baptista said that he thought Petruchio had the most difficult wife. Bianca, Catherine, and the widow were all out of the room, and Petruchio suggested a challenge. Each of the 3 new husbands would call their wives, and the winner was the man whose wife showed the most obedience. They all agreed, thinking that Petruchio was mad. He was married to Catherine, the woman who obeyed no man. Lucentio began and sent Biondello to get Bianca. Biondello returned and gave them Bianca's message. "She says she is busy and cannot come." Then Hortensio sent him to get the widow. He returned and gave them the widow's message. "She thinks you are planning a game and will not come." Then Petruchio sent Biondello to get Catherine. Catherine came. She spoke to him very politely and asked what he would like. The other husbands were all surprised. To prove his point, Petruchio told Catherine he did not like her hat. "Take it off and throw it away," he said. She did. Then he told her to tell the other wives how they should behave toward their husbands. She told them to obey their husbands. "Kiss me, Kate," said Petruchio. She did. The storyteller finished his story. Sly was asleep. The Lord told his servants to dress him in his own clothes and put him back on the doorstep where they found him. When Sly woke up again, he told everyone that he had the most wonderful dream. Playlet, A Midsummer Night's Dream. Theseus, Lysander, Demetrius, Hippolyta, Hermia, and Helena are sitting on chairs ready to watch a play. Quince enters.
The play is ready to begin. It is probably not very good, but we hope you like it anyway. It is a short, boring, sad comedy. The actors are ready. They are not very good actors, but they will do their best. Enjoy.
This is nonsense. How can it be sad and a comedy? How can it be short and boring?
It is like black snow or hot ice.
How can we enjoy something that is not very good?
Let's see what happens next.
Here are the actors.
Bottom, Flute, Snout, Starveling, and Snug come onto the stage.
The story is about a man called Pyramus, who loves a beautiful lady called Thisbe. They meet near a wall and agree to meet in the moonlight. When Thisbe arrives, a lion chases her away. She drops her coat and the lion tears it. When Pyramus finds it, he thinks that the lion has killed Thisbe. He is sad and kills himself. Thisbe comes back and finds him dead. She kills herself too.
Quince, Bottom, Flute, Starveling, and Snug all leave the stage.
It sounds very sad. It sounds very funny.
It sounds boring.
I hope it is short.
It sounds like a short, boring, sad comedy.
My name is Snout. I am the wall. The wall has a small hole in it. The lovers often whisper through this hole.
I have never heard a wall speak so well. The other spectators all agree, nodding their heads and saying yes, or that's right, or neither have I. Bottom enters the stage. Look, here comes Pyramus. Let's listen.
What a dark night this is. I hope Thisbe has not forgotten me. Hello, beautiful, wonderful wall. Show me your hole. Thank you, wonderful wall. But what can I see? Nothing. I cannot see Thisbe. You are a terrible, horrible wall. I hate you.
I think the wall should tell Pyramus how stupid he is.
No, my lord, he shouldn't. When I say, I hate you, that is the cue for Thisbe to enter, and I will see her through the hole. Watch.
Flute comes on to the stage.
Hello, sweet wall. You often hear me cry because you stand between my lover and me. I hear a voice. I will go to the hole to see if I can see my Thisbe's face. Thisbe? I am Thisbe. I love you, Pyramus. I love you too, Thisbe, but I cannot kiss you through the wall. The hole is too small. Come and meet me at Ninny's tomb. Yes, that's a good idea.
Bottom and Flute leave the stage.
The wall's part ends, so goodbye, friends.
Snout leaves the stage. Now there is no wall. What can you do when walls just come and go as they please?
This is the silliest play I have ever seen.
Snug and Starveling come onto the stage. Starveling is carrying a light. Ladies, I know that you are afraid of even small animals. However, you should not be frightened of me, even though I am a lion. I am really Snug, and I am only pretending to be a lion. What a nice lion!
The friendliest lion that I have ever seen.
This light is the moonlight, and I am the man in the moon. If he is the man in the moon, he should be inside the light.
He would not fit.
I'm bored. Can we go home?
No, that would be bad manners. We should stay until the end.
Continue, Moon.
I have said everything already. Flute comes onto the stage.
I am Thisbe. Here is Ninny's tomb. Where is Pyramus?
Snug roars like a lion, and Thisbe runs away. She drops her coat. You roared very well, lion. You ran very well, Thisbe.
You shone very well, Moon.
Snug picks up the coat and shakes it. Bottom comes back onto the stage. Snug drops the coat and runs away.
Hello, sweet moon. Thank you for your lovely light. I'll see Thisbe, though it's night. What is this? It is Thisbe's coat, torn by a lion. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
I think that is one oh no too many.
I feel sorry for him. I can't help it.
Why did God make lions? A lioness killed the most beautiful lady that ever lived. I don't have enough tears to cry for her. I will kill myself. Oh, oh, my blood is red, and I am dead. Everything is black. Go, moon, go.
Starveling leads the stage. How will Thisbe see Paramus now that the moonlight is gone?
She will see him by starlight. Quiet! Here she comes.
Flute comes onto the stage and sees Paramus lying on the ground.
I hope she won't take too long.
Are you asleep, my love? Are you dead, my love? Pyramus, get up. Oh no! Oh no! He is dead. I loved him. He had such beautiful green eyes. Oh no! Oh no! I cannot live without him. Oh! My blood is red, and I am dead. Goodbye, friends. Thisbe ends. That is the end of the play. Would you like to see some more, or shall we dance for you?
No more, no more. Please dance for us.
The other spectators all agree, saying no more, and dance, dance.